Let's bring this meeting to order. It's the December 7th, 2021 Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom platform, and this meeting is being recorded. The first item on the agenda are the meeting minutes from November 16th. Do we have any comments?
I had actually two small edits, but I don't know if I can I see? Oh, there they are. Really minor, but first line of page 2, I think Gretchen probably meant to say that Joe and Julia met with the applicant. Just says meet now because it already happened. And there was one more. And then on page 3 at the bottom, I think it should say on the second line, that work that was conducted without a permit. You just need the word was in there.
Where is that again?
The second one under Q Street.
Oh, under
second
Q
line-
Street. Okay.
Second line, work that was conducted without a permit.
Yes, good point. Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, old new business. Plum Island updates. Do we have Plum Island updates?
The only Plum Island updates I have right now would be with regard to Reservation Terrace, which is nearing completion. The work out there is nearing completion, if not complete. It looked good on Monday morning. They were just finishing up some work on the remaining coir bags down at the very end towards 77th Street. But it looks like they've tied it up pretty well, and things look pretty stable out there. I don't know if anyone else, someone sent some pictures. Was that you, Steve or David?
I went out there a week or so ago and I don't think I sent any pictures, but it
Somebody
looked pretty
for
good.
the resiliency committee did share some.
Oh, okay, okay.
You'd seen some other ones.
I was out there Saturday. I was amazed at how much stone was out there.
I was too. Mhm.
But it does seem much more stable.
So at high tide, there's no beach anymore there, right? In that
Yep.
low area.
Nope.
Okay.
One other Plum Island thing is we're in the midst of rewriting the beach management plan, an update of it, like a subcommittee through the Beach Alliance. And I don't know when, but it'll probably be coming to the Conservation Commission early next year. So just something to look for and get input on.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. You have anything else? Okay. So next we're gonna have a short discussion on 251 Low Street from Minco.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to promote Scott Cameron to a panelist, as well as Karen Palestrino. And let me know, raise your hand if there is anyone else here in the attendees list who is presenting on that
Rich
251
Kirby,
Low Street. Who?
Rich Kirby and Galaxy Note 8.
Okay. 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 All right, so I don't have any materials, so I believe Scott Cameron will share his screen just for a moment. We have a few minutes to go over an informal discussion of this. You guys can unmute yourselves.
Callum Polistrano or Polistrino is.
Yeah,
has her
is she
hand up
still
there.
over there? Okay,
Yeah.
I thought I moved her. All right.
Julia, good evening. I did actually email you that color exhibit, but
Oh.
I'm happy to pull it up on my screen too.
Okay, sorry, I must have already left y'all.
I have it handy if I
Okay,
just can't share
thanks.
screen.
I must have missed that. Yes, so you can share your screen.
Okay. Oop, it's saying I can't.
Oh, really? All right. It should be all
Yeah, I
panelists.
think you have to stop sharing first.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'll stop sharing. Go ahead.
At some point, we'll figure this all out. Jeez,
Yeah.
in like 2 years. 1 second. So good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group. I am here on behalf of Minco Corporation. Rich Kirby from LEC Environmental is also here. If you have any questions, and I do appreciate a few minutes of your time to put this in front of you. You might be familiar with this property, which was the Hodges 2 site. We renewed an ORAD with you not too long ago, last year. This is fronting on Low Street. The majority of the front portion of the property is developed with parking, a small building, gravel, pretty intensely used. There's some stormwater management behind that. There's a drainage discharge from that comes into the property, the pretty crudely carved out and eroded channel, which feeds eventually back out to the wetland. There's a mowed field in the back. Portions are upland and portions are wetland based on soils. Minco has now put under contract the abutting parcel, which is shown as 0 Low Street. It's a little under 22 acres, and Rich Kirby went out earlier this fall with a GPS unit and mapped out the approximate limits of the wetlands on the property to get a better feel for what we're dealing with. A lot of the upland portions are kind of bifurcated and situated to the rear of the parcel. But are relatively, they're nice. There's some nice upland and wetland resources on this 22-acre tract. And it kind of got us thinking of the entirety of the 2 parcels being around, a little under 33 acres. And the opportunity to maybe aggregate the 2 properties in some sort of collective development proposal where Minco's interest would be trying to redevelop the front portion of the property. And again, this area mostly developed or farm field. There is kind of this channel for the drainage that's chopped up, but some sort of a multifamily residential use in that front area where there is a need and a better utilization for that property. It would require some relief under the wetlands ordinance. Notably, the setback to the wetlands, the 25-foot, would likely also require a little bit of filling and replication of some of the finger-like projections and cleanup of this drainage ditch, which definitely falls under your jurisdiction. And in exchange for some of that flexibility under the wetlands ordinance, there is a potential of a fee donation of over 26 acres of land directly to the city as public open space, plus the potential for additional 4 to 5 acres, which could be under a CR on land that would remain as part of the development. The use is allowed by a special permit. There's a density restriction that would really dictate the footprint of the total land tract. And normally as a single property, we wouldn't be coming to you at this, but it happens to also abut against other existing open space that city owns, which I highlighted in green here. And in total, if you coupled all this up, this would be north of 220 acres of contiguous open space, which extends all the way down to Hale Street, fronts on Colby Farm Lane, and then this would have now frontage on Low Street. A few years back when I was before you with the UFP application on Hale Street. This is for the big addition they put off the back. We did ask, I believe it was the first variance request for a private application, development application under the bylaw. The bylaw was still relatively new, 5 or 6 years ago. And as part of the granting of that relief to work within the 25-foot no disturb, UFP constructed the parking area on Hale Street, which provides access to kind of the southerly end of this open space land. And so we thought this would be a potential opportunity to add a significant portion of open space land and also the direct public access. And I will say it does look like there might be space here to create another small public parking area, similar to what's on the southern end of it, directly off of Low Street. So we thought it would be a nice bookend to the open space area. And who knows in the future what other potential open space could be added to this. And notably too, the fields that are mowed now would be able to continue to do so, or could be restored back, whatever is of best interest to the city and the commission. So to keep it short, that's it. We're hoping to get some initial reaction response from the board and see if this is something we want to continue to pursue forward with some concepts in a little more detail, in which we will be back before you in the form of some sort of an application. And thank you. And Rich is here, who can answer questions about the wetland systems. And I can answer any questions about the land and potential development.
So, go ahead, Steve.
So that entire sort of backward L-shaped 26 acres you would donate to the city? Is that?
Yes. Yep.
And then some portion of the other lot would have a restriction on it, or?
Yeah, the white is just land that would be necessary to, let's say it's a 60 unit apartment, right? Whatever it is, let's just throw a number out there. There's a density requirement under the zoning ordinance based on the land area, and it's a special permit use. So it would carve out the land area needed for that to meet zoning, and we would use what we would need for parking to support the facility or drainage, and then the potential to put that land in a CR or something to join with the open space would be there. It's wetland anyway, so there's not a whole lot you could do with it, but it would be nice to have the actual rights of access to it, and managing it with contiguous open space is a possibility. There's flexibility there, is what I'm saying.
The portion that's in purple, the little stick that comes down, would that be used as part of the development, or be part of the?
Yeah, so we did meet with Andy Port and Julia last week and got some feedback from them as well. And part of what we talked about was, if we just stick to the upland, the contiguous upland, okay, we can put a building up here and we can extend kind of a linear parking area back. It kind of gets far away from the building. It fills in the field area here, kind of bifurcates this, or, with some of there would be a little bit of a wetland filling and replication process to cross over this drainage channel, intermittent stream, but extend the parking across the frontage. So in reality, I think what you're looking at is, if you did the work in the front with some wetland relocating, you wouldn't develop back here. This would remain open space. That would become white. Or if you didn't want to do that, that area in purple would become open space, would become developed area, and we wouldn't develop, this side. If that makes sense. So I just marked out the area that was mostly the upland of that property. And I will note too, with the 20% max alteration within the 100-foot buffer, with the addition of all this land, there's no issues with that. So the only relief we would be looking for is the 25-foot no disturb. And I think.
Okay.
Is there a problem that it looks like that whole area is zoned for business rather than residence?
In the B1, multifamily residential is a special permit use. So we would require a special permit there.
Would you incorporate Hodges into your building?
That was going to be my next question. What happens to Hodges?
I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that. Possibly a relocation at another project we have going on now. Down by the train station. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was snark. That wasn't,
I get it. Newburyport has a fondness for ice cream stores. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
given that this is the headwaters of the Little River and keeping this as open space would help with the flooding problems downstream in the industrial park. I could see this as being a good thing for the city.
yeah, well, at least it wouldn't exacerbate what's going on down there.
You're right.
Where that purple piece juts out and there's all that whitish shading, is that, what's going on there in the residential area as far as what is out there?
So the white is, as I said, it's mostly wetland now. It's not really highly usable land. It simply would be, I made the distinction between the blue and the white. The blue could be a fee donation, so the city would actually own the land. The white would be probably some sort of a CR protected, that would go with that, an easement, if you will. But again, for open space. Public
Okay,
open
the white doesn't represent any kind of upland of any sort.
No. The wetlands are a little hard to see, but the purplish color here on the 251 low is more or less the upland area on that. And then the 0 low, there's uplands back in this area of the property and back up over here. So it's kind of,
Okay.
and there's a little bit of upland on the front here as well, we believe. I don't know if you can see the black line on your screen.
Yeah, it looks good. What would it be a normal thing to just donate the land to the city with a CR in place? All the blue, or would it just? I'm losing track of how we do this in other areas.
I suppose it could all be a CR as well. It doesn't have to be a fee donation. I think that with the CRs, it's more about who's assuming the management of it.
Well, we do have an open space manager now, so I don't know who would hold the CR, but something that size, I would guess Essex County Greenbelt might consider it. But that's down the road. So I certainly have no issues with, at this point, what I see. So that I've been wanting that Woodman property on the right to be get a CR for a long time. So that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Does anyone have an objection to them crossing the drainage channel at the road adjacent to the roadway to create the parking area along the roadway, as opposed to having it stay out of that impact area and extend back into the sort of like finger of upland? Is there, either way, it would require a variance. But I think they need a direction in which to head.
No,
I would
I'd be okay if they went straight across the roadway.
Yeah, I would prefer that versus having the parking extending down into what would be open space.
Yeah.
That certainly makes more sense to me. And then that bit there can get added to the other white section. I don't have an issue with doing that.
It might be helpful for access to the open space too, to have that piece.
Yeah, and it might be easier for the residents who live there too.
So I just want to clarify. So right now, does Minko own all of the area that's blue?
No, they own 251 Low Street. So that's this kind of rectangular shape here. And they have the balance Eleanor Woodman Trust under contract purchase. So right now we're exploring we're kind of in that due diligence period. We're exploring options for that land to see if we can find any, any value for continuing forward with that purchase.
Yeah, no, I'm, like I said, I don't have an issue with that or taking, crossing that drainage
Yeah.
area.
I assume there's only water in that when it rains and comes off the parking lot and the roofs.
Yeah, it was mapped as an intermittent stream, and I haven't been in there since last year when we were upping the ORAD, but it's pretty scoured at the end. It's a pretty sharp embankment. It drops probably 8 to 10 feet, and it's kind of loose soil. The water, you can see the water from the drainage outfall just kind of rips through there. And then it kind of settles out as it gets back into the wetland. You can see the flow gets more laminar and spread out.
Yeah, I think the only restriction we might put on you is to make sure that drainage doesn't do damage downstream, that it's slowed down and contained in some manner.
Yeah, I admit I need to do a little more investigation as to upstream of that. It could also be that it is simply drainage, might be an upgradient channel. So we're still doing a little more investigation on that and the point of origination.
Mhm.
I believe there's a whole bunch of water storage underneath the parking lot there in the former Kmart. And maybe that's not working if you're getting that kind of flow there.
Yeah, that's possible, but no, it looks fine to me at this point. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Okay, I do appreciate your time, and hopefully we're back before you soon with the makings of a proposal.
Okay. Very good.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Scott.
much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Joe. All right, on to certificates of compliance, et cetera. First one is Jordy Vining, 22 Merrimack Street, request for certificate of compliance.
Yes. Okay, let me find Jordy here. Hold on a sec to get back to my list of attendees. All right, Jordy, I'm gonna promote you to a panelist. Oops, I missed. Hold on. And it looks like we also probably need Russell. I'm gonna promote Russell to a panelist. If there's anyone else for this project who is part of the presentation, could you raise your hand and I will promote you? Otherwise, I think that will cover it. Okay. Great. So Jordy, I've got the notice of intent. I've got the request for certificate of compliance up here. And if you want to just give like a brief summary of, how the project went and what was left over and et cetera, and let me know if you want me to show any of the plans.
Okay, sounds good. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I can pass the baton to our consultant at GEI, Russell, in just a minute or two, but this is the basic situation is, as you'll remember, we did the first phase of the bulkhead rehabilitation project a good number of years ago, something around 2014, and we decided to break it up into phases because of what the financial resources were available for that project. We got a fairly substantial Seaport Economic Council grant to support a piece of that. And then we held off on getting the certificate of compliance because every year we were hoping that the rest of the project would get done. And that didn't happen. So we are actually, as we'll be talking about a little bit later on your agenda, we're moving forward again with the engineering and slight modification of that project, the rest of that project. But we wanted to come back to this sort of missing element to close the loop of the certificate of compliance for the previous work, which was focused on the fish pier where the harbor master office is, which back at the time was the worst section of the central waterfront bulkhead. as well as at the western run, the western side of the bulkhead, to the west of the embayment, over in the direction of the restaurant, the Tuscan Grill restaurant. That project went off pretty well, and we're trying to move forward now to essentially complete that. So maybe I'll turn it over to Russ and see if there's anything else to add before we see if you have any questions on that.
Sorry, just working out how to unmute myself. Yeah, I don't know if you want me to step through the plan so you can see clearly what we completed back in 2014 or not. This shows the area down by the fish pier. So the project was to add an FRP bulkhead outshore of the existing steel sheet pile bulkheads to protect them against any further corrosion. To stabilize the situation out there, really. So we completed what you can see on this screen here, which is the whole of the area down by the fish pier, all the way to the property line at the eastern limit. If you move to the next plan. So the other area which we also completed, right next to the Harbour Master building, this has got the old Harbour Master building on there, actually, I think. There was an area with the bridge over the top. I'm not sure what I'm looking at the moment.
Can you all still see the plans?
No.
Okay, something just happened with my screen. Just one sec. I'm gonna see if I can reshare. Not sure what happened there. It's not letting me, hold on. Stop share. Okay, I'm gonna start over. Sorry about this, everybody. This happened last time. For some reason, can you all tell me what you can see right now?
A lot of red.
A red.
Very red.
A lot of red. Okay.
Huh.
Let me just see if I can clear something. It is not working.
Julia, do you want us to just verbally talk through?
Yes, would you please? That would be wonderful, Jordy, while I try to troubleshoot on my end over here.
Just to
Russ,
keep
do you wanna keep going? Yeah.
Yeah, just to keep stepping through from that eastern end from the fish pier, there's that little bridge crossing, which goes from the end of the boardwalk across to the fish pier itself. There's a little portion of the boardwalk, which is actually like a bridge structure over a large outfall. We also completed that area. There was a portion of stone revetment under there, and the city had a history of sinkholes and things in the brick pavement and everything just in the area inshore of that. So we added, it's actually concrete filled fabric, which has got like a filter to it as well. So it allows water to come and go through it, but it basically works as a new revetment over the top of the existing with built-in filters. That area was completed, but that was where we stopped at the eastern end. And then as Geordie said, we actually did the western side where the tour boats are in front of the steel cells. We didn't quite make it as far as the restaurant because there is a portion of new bulkhead at that end, which we didn't need to touch and we still don't need to touch. So we've encased that area on the west side as well with FRP sheets, same approach, and it's all backfilled with concrete behind it, which is actually attached by means of brackets to the steel cells as well. The other thing we did back in 2014, because the embayment bulkheads, there's that embayment, which is about 1/3 to 1/2 of the way along the waterfront area there. Back in 2012, when we inspected that, the steel thicknesses were good. So we tried recoating that area. So we cleaned and recoated it. And that was done in 2014 as well.
Okay.
So is the boardwalk from the embayment going east to the harbor masters, has that not been done or has it?
That's correct, Steve.
Correct.
That's been
It's,
done.
that is the stretch that has not yet been done.
Okay, and that's not in this, the plan we're going to talk about later.
That is in the plan we're talking about
Oh,
later, yeah.
okay.
That's just not for this certificate of compliance, which is for the 2014 work.
Okay.
So nothing yet, Julie?
I don't know what's happening with the system. Can you tell me what you guys can see right now?
Just black, just the
Just black.
people's
Okay.
pictures. But in,
We see
So-
it on feeds.
Somehow or other, every window that was open froze, won't open, won't close. Things, I can open new things, but when I open them, they won't close either. So, and all sorts of screens are opening up and closing on their own. And Zoom, I have no control. I can't find any of my Zoom controls at all. I can see Jordy right now. It's a tiny icon, that's it. So what I'm wondering is
If
if
you log out, everybody gets lost and has to come back in.
I was gonna say we didn't one time. Julie's machine did crash
it did this
and we
before.
stayed here and she came back in
Okay,
Yep.
after.
So here's what I'm gonna leave the webinar and I'm going to log back in and see if I can restart it from my system while you all stay on, okay?
Okay. We'll-
All right, so
we'll
keep
go into a-
talking.
we can talk or we can gonna go into a break, either way.
Joe, I'm assigning you as the new host, okay?
Be careful what you do. Okay, I'm the new host.
Well, we could vote on this if we were so inclined.
Yeah, we can. We
Yeah.
are, I guess we are still recording, so, okay, we can do that.
Yeah, 'cause it sounds like everything that was done under that previous order is done according to the order. And we're just saying that that is done, but there was a section XYZ that was not done and will not be done under that old number.
Okay,
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like a motion to me, but,
I'll make a motion to do that.
well, that sounds like one.
second,
All right, roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes?
Steve Moore,
yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I say yes. Okay, thank you. Hi, Dan. Didn't say hi to you yet.
Hi, Joe. Thank you.
So at this point, we'll wait for Julie because, wait, can I demote somebody? Can I get rid of you, Jordy? I don't even know how to do that.
We can't get rid of Jordy.
me if you
Lucky,
want.
lucky
I'll
you.
be popping
Can
back up.
Jordy
and-
share the screen with us, the images, so we can keep going, or? he
Well,
doesn't have any?
we're done. Well, there's Julie. We're actually done with that. So we're gonna be going on to the other thing later.
Oh.
So
Okay.
let's see. Julie's back in. And
All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm gonna try share. Hopefully that won't happen again.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make you host first, Julie.
I'm gonna try to share my screen again, but before I do that, I need to pull up the files. So real quick, get to Central Waterfront.
Actually, Julie, we voted on it. We're all.
You did?
we're done
yeah.
Wow, you guys are awesome. Can we keep doing that kind of thing?
with it. Well, you can just run out and we'll discuss Evergreen.
Perfect. Okay, good. So you voted to approve the COC?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, excellent. All right, well then in that case, let me just see if I can find the agenda.
Evergreen.
Yep, and we're on to Evergreen. Okay. Hold on a sec. Now, I'm going to share screen. Okay, can you see the agenda?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to now get us onto Evergreen. I don't quite know where to start. So with this one, let's move the project team over to present. Looks like we've got Chip Hall's here.
Lisa, Tom Hughes.
Lisa, yep. Okay. And Tom. All right.
And you might want
And-
to demote Jordy and Russell also,
Yep.
so we're not too.
So we don't have too many. Okay. They'll be back.
They'll be back.
All right. So Tom and Lisa and Chip, I have a million files from you guys on this. And I just I had them all loaded up and ready to go and then got kicked out of the meeting. So I have to bring them all up again. Can you let me know where you'd like to start? Do you want to start with the CR? Would you like to start with the certificate of compliance request? And which documents would you like me to show first?
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so I have a couple of them loaded up, the things that,
Okay.
that were updated from the last
Okay.
ones. If you want, I could just share a screen.
Please do.
I was thinking we start with the conservation restriction. So cannot start screen share while, oh, I need you to stop screen sharing.
Yep. Here we
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Funny, my computer does not ever malfunction while I'm doing a Zoom, only when I'm having a conservation commission meeting.
Well, I think you may, sorry, let me just find the right stuff here. Okay, so we submitted a whole package. We went through it at the last meeting. The commission voted to authorize the CR to kind of move forward, but wanted more time with the baseline because we had just gotten that in. And we also submitted the COC request, and Julie has done some review of that. One of the items that came up in Julie's review were some minor comments on the baseline report, and we also wanted to run a clean baseline field report. So let me just get quickly into what we did. This is a baseline documentation report. One of Julia's comments was that the landscape plan should be attached, and one of the things I wanted to point out is that it's in this list. It's right here, landscape sheet L0, and that's the one that lists all of the plants. It's also the one that's colored in with the different seed areas. So that is already in here. We can certainly attach anything else you want. The other thing I did in a version I sent over today is updated the date on the field report, and I ran the field report identical to what you've already seen, only documenting some of the encroachments that had occurred, and some of the minor remaining seating areas are all documented now. So, you know, going through our photo shoot, you know, here's there's a bound you can see right here, for example, right on the other side of the hydrant, and the next bound right up here. And, you know, we went through this at the last meeting, but just to kind of show you, here's the entrance pathway, looks great. Pollinator meadow coming in great. Here's another area, you know, bound to bound, and you follow it along. And we basically had to patch a little bit of area that was lawn here and convert it back over to pollinator. So that's all been done. So all of these were run. I had a couple misentries in terms of the words yes or no in my field run, and I sent Julia a corrected version. I sent her the raw one right from the field this morning. And I had taken some pictures of, so for example, let me get to one of those. So in the report software that I built for this, and so for example, here's an encroachment that's been removed. And you can see there were timbers that were running alongside, they've been removed. So this now lines right up on the property line. And again, here you can see where, it now lines right up with the property line. So we've done an awful lot of work just to deal with these sort of minor little sort of fine sandpaper type things. And then some of the optional things, I took a picture of each of the educational signs, and my default answer in my software is the word yes for this. Is there an issue or encroachment? So I hadn't toggled that off. So I fixed that in this report. So all of those are good. Everything's clean. A couple minor things that are more HOA things that Julia and I have talked about. And I think, unless the commission has any questions or thoughts, we'd ask you to approve the baseline and sign the CR. And ideally, I think Lisa had a time frame on that it needs to be done by.
Thank you. Yeah, if I could, thank you, Julia and Mr. Chair. For the record, Lisa Mead, Talon Acosta, 30 Green Street, on behalf of Evergreen Commons. So the City Council and the Planning Board have both approved the conservation restriction. And so once the baseline is approved, the commission approved it last time. So once the baseline is approved, it can be signed. And my goal is to get it signed this week. The mayor, I think Julia hopefully talked to the mayor and Richard Jones today. And we actually need wet signatures. So we need at least 4 of you to go in and sign the conservation restriction. I will then take it to, or have it delivered to EOEA. They will do a signature page, send it back to me. I'll get it recorded. Just so you know, we are going to provide security to the planning board to make sure that it gets recorded, and you all have a copy of that afterwards. So we've worked that out with the planning board.
Okay, Lisa, can I just clarify that? Because it has to go through so many people. So I have a copy on my desk right now that it's not signed by anybody, but it has a Conservation Commission signature page. These guys can just come in and sign that signature page. That's all you need. It doesn't have to be the same document that's getting passed around to everybody, correct?
Yeah, just that signature. You do actually have the original approved copy. So you do, all of the signature pages will need to get attached to what you have.
Okay, got it.
Right.
So that means the sooner that the commissioners can come in and sign the original that I have, the better, because that is the one that then needs to go to everybody else.
Right. And if you can, it would be great to have it signed by Thursday, because then I can have Chip sign it on Thursday and I can actually send it to EOEA on Friday.
Okay. So the mayor is away until Thursday. I don't know if you knew that. She is but she'll be back on Thursday. So I have an appointment with her on Thursday morning and we'll take care of that.
Great. That's great.
Okay, so with that, I think what I would like to ask is if the commission would be willing to vote to approve this, unless you have any questions on it, that we get the CR kind of out of the way.
I actually had one question and now I can't find it. There was one picture in your baseline report that showed like plastic along the going. I couldn't figure out why that was even there. Do you know what I'm talking about? You probably, I don't know.
Are you talking about the? Okay.
I just couldn't understand why there was looked like a plastic bag almost. That was.
Was this in the report that was sent today or in the last one?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I've been looking at them as they've been coming in, but I don't remember which one.
Yeah, so there were no encroachments like that this time.
It wasn't an encroachment. It was just kind of a shot of one of the somewhere along the route there, and I just confused it why there would be some.
There are some. Maybe this.
No. Oh yeah, maybe it's no. That's not it.
No.
Okay. It's not a
Um,
big deal. I just was confused about why there would be.
Yeah, if I saw anything like that, it was documented and noted that it should be removed, or in fact, you just picked it up.
Okay, so maybe it was in an earlier picture.
It might have been
Oh,
in the earlier version. The other thing there may have been is a watering bag from
True.
all of the trees that were put in the open space had watering bags around them,
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
and it may have been a watering bag. I don't remember seeing anything like that. I did this today.
Okay, all right. Sorry, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
It just didn't seem like it belonged there.
Yeah, no,
That's
and the whole purpose of these reports is going to be on an annual basis. The person making the report's going to document the condition of things, and then, you know, if there's trash or the need for cleanup or, you know, an encroachment, those will all be noted, and then recommendations made on how to rectify that, and you know, then work with the commission on the appropriate schedule for any issues that come up. The commission will be notified ahead of those inspections so that a member or representative from the commission can attend the site walk along with the HOA. So it'll be sort of like, there used to be this thing where the towns and cities had to walk the bounds of the community. It's kind of like that idea.
Preambulation.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
I haven't heard of one of those happening in a while, but
Okay. Anybody else got questions?
I'm all set.
Trying to see, okay, then we get a motion.
Is this to approve the baseline document?
Yeah.
And sign the CR and vote to sign the CR.
In one motion or two?
I think you can do it all in one since you approved the content of the CR at the last meeting.
Agreed.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the baseline document and sign the CR.
second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
yes,
Steve Moore,
Yes,
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
and I vote yes.
thank
All
you.
right.
All
Thank you.
right, so then the next part of this is a certificate of compliance request, and Julia pointed out two things that were not in our COC request. One was the evidence of plaques installed in each garage, and what's been happening is we've been going along, we've been providing those at time of request of an occupancy from the city, and Jennifer from the planning office has been going out and physically looking at every plaque. She has done that on every single unit except one Gabourey, which is yet to get its occupancy. And we provided a photo of that plaque in that garage for one Gabourey. So I believe Jennifer was going to confirm with Julia that sort of to confirm the evidence that all those plaques were installed appropriately in the garages. The other thing she noted was there were required photographs, and we had provided all those baseline photos. But what I've done is provided you with a separate set of photo sheets. These were emailed in. So these show representative areas of the open space, aerials to kind of capture the whole site, and then each of the stormwater basins as required. So we provided those last bits. You know, this is a large site with a huge open space area, and it's been an awful lot of work, but I think overall this project meets or exceeds expectations, and we've tried to work with the city all along in terms of how this project laid out, how it went forward, and you know, we would be thrilled to have you guys vote to issue the certificate of compliance.
I think you got a homeowner at one Gabourey that would appreciate that too.
motion to issue the certificate of compliance,
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
yes,
Steve Moore,
yes,
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes.
I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to be jumping ship from the meeting and back in time, hopefully for 25 base, and I have to run over to the Newbury meeting for a few minutes.
So how many years has it been?
Well, we started the permitting in 2017.
Wow.
2017 is when we started the original permitting.
Well, and we did
Um,
the ORAD work starting in 16, right?
Right, ORAD in 16, permitting in 17, and then actual construction started in 18. The permits weren't issued fully until 18.
Right. We did reconnaissance on a golf cart and I nearly killed a couple of the principals trying to play golf. I have no business playing golf if it doesn't involve a windmill.
Right.
So,
There you go.
Julia, I'll pick up the certificate of compliance too also on Thursday if that's possible, so I can take care of getting that recorded.
Sure, I'll have that. I'll get them both ready for you by Thursday, assuming that the mayor can sign it.
Yeah,
when we
I got
meet
you.
on Thursday. Yeah.
Okay.
thank you very much, guys.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
Julia, you'd like us to come in tomorrow to sign those?
Yeah, so I will have this, it's in a purple folder. I'll put it on the planning office. I'll be in tomorrow, but I'll put it on the planning office counter in case I'm sort of out of the office or busy or whatever. And I'll have a sticky on the signature page. Whoever can come in tomorrow, I need at least 4 of you tomorrow to come in and sign it if that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
so- so would
Anytime
that- would
between
that be there
8
about
a.m. and-
8:39?
Yeah, I won't be in yet. I won't be in until 10:30, but Diane in our office will be there, or Jennifer, and they will know where it is. It's in a purple, you can tell them it's in the purple folder on my desk, which they know it's right there. They can give it to you to sign. They'll be there at 8 a.m. tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So that would be wonderful. Thank you, Paul, and anyone else who can come in.
Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow.
Awesome.
I can come in too, Julie.
Yes, I can be there.
Great. Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
No, sounds like we got
Well,
4.
thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Okay, now I'm going to share my screen again.
Oh, boy.
Let's just keep our fingers crossed. This was the photo, actually, this is one of the plaques in one of the garages. So you can see they've got it pretty clearly, right as you walk from people's garages into their house, that's where they are. But let's go back to our agenda. And now we're moving on to Spofford Stroll. I guess we need to open the public hearing, so I'll leave it to you guys.
Okay. All right, get a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Jan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Carol Wagon.
Yes.
I vote yes. First item is to Lorraine and Michael Riley, to Spofford Street. Minute order of conditions, and they requested a continuance.
Yes, they did. And I believe Tom has already exited, but I mean, it's up to you all in terms of whether or not you want to continue to the next meeting. I would recommend pushing it beyond that, given that this extends back until since June, that we've been continuing this with no new information.
Okay, so maybe the first meeting in January
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, at least.
All right, well, why don't we go
Is
to
there any
that?
reason not to just take it off the agenda and put the onus on them to bring it back rather
Yep.
than continuing it each time?
That is your option.
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
Tom's not here to explain why they. why
actually-
they- Oh, you are.
Actually, you know, so Newbury was fast. So if we're talking about the continuation for Lorraine and Michael Riley, so we had to update the site plan, and then the landscape architect had to update the landscape architectural plan. And the first cut at updating the landscape architectural plan didn't line up with the site plan changes that we had to make to get the numbers to work. And we just got the revised landscape architectural plan. I'm waiting on Millennium to confirm, but we fully expect to be ready at the next meeting. So if that's going to be January, then that's January.
Well, I guess we can
Yeah.
do it till the 21st too, because we don't know whether we're
Yeah, if you do it to the 21st and then you cancel that meeting, it by default would continue to the next. The reason not to take us off the agenda is we've published a legal notice and notified
Right.
abutters, and if we have to get back on the agenda, we would have to do that again.
Right.
So if we can continue to a date certain, our preference is the next meeting, whether that happens December 21st or January, whatever.
Well, there's only one other item aside from Geordie's, that the 25 Basin Street, is that one going to be continued as well?
So our intent with that one, it's going to zoning on the 28th, was to come in, introduce the project, go through any questions, try to answer what we can tonight, and then if it seems like it's all sort of answerable stuff and everything, we would just continue the meeting after zoning and work on any additional information we need to get you between now and then. If there were significant issues that we felt we needed to work out, then the meeting on the 21st would probably be helpful. So, I mean,
Conceivably, this would get pushed out to the 6th anyway, is what you're saying?
right,
I'm just
that's our
trying to get a
plan.
sense
You're
of-
right. Our plan was just to jump to the 20th, because what we want to do is come to you, figure out what the issues are, make sure there's nothing that's going to change the zoning plans, and then go to zoning, make sure there's nothing there that's going to change the conservation plans, and then come back to conservation and close. So that would mean coming back in January on 25 Basin.
I mean, I personally would just as soon not have the meeting before Christmas because of the Rileys and considering how long this thing is dragged out.
No, that's fine too. That's fine with me. And
Well, for right now, why don't I ask you to continue to the 21st with the full understanding that if it's the only agenda item that you're likely to cancel that meeting.
Yeah, but I guess what we're saying, Tom, is we already know that it's, well, we don't know. We don't know.
How
for sure.
about,
We
how
don't
about
know
we
what's happening.
can we table this to after
Yes.
25 Basin?
Yeah.
And then we'll continue to whatever meeting 25 Basin goes to. Does that work?
I can do that.
Okay.
We can do that. All right. Then we will head on to the next agenda item, which is Geordie Vining again. The report Office of Planning Development, 22 Merrimack Street, Central Waterfront. No offense, but Julie, can you demote Lisa and Tom, please?
Yes, I can. Okay, sorry, let's see here. All right. So now we need Geordie back and Russell. So let me get these guys. Hold on a sec here. Like a moving target over in this attendees list. So just get everybody in the right spot. Okay. So hopefully that worked, that Geordie and Russell will now be back over as panelists.
Geordie's here.
Geordie and Russell. Okay, great. So I'm going to move to showing, can you all see the Central Waterfront Bulkhead and Piles Project Phase 2?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So now Geordie and Russell, I'm going to leave it to you and fingers crossed that the same thing doesn't happen again.
Right.
Sorry about
All right.
that.
Maybe we'll do something similar. I'll just give a quick sort of 1-minute overview and then turn it over to Russell for some more of the specifics. So we talked a little bit about the phasing of this overall project to try to rehabilitate this old bulkhead, which was originally installed in, I believe, 1977. So we did the transportation dock over there on the west, as we talked about, as well as the fish pier area, and the portion directly adjacent to the Tuscan Grill restaurant and the boat ramp has a bulkhead that's maybe almost 20 years old, but is in good shape, steel bulkhead that we replaced when we reconstructed the boardwalk a couple of decades ago. So we did that part that the cursor is moving on. And at the time, we considered, based on inspections, the embayment area to actually be in the least damaged condition. And Russell was talking about doing the coating and sort of more minor repairs. It turns out after the more recent inspection that the embayment area is actually now on our watch list for being, you know, having considerable more concern about structural impacts on that that particular bulkhead. It's of a different construction. Julie's just pulled up the different a photo here, but the driven sheet piles here are unlike the rest of the bulkhead along the river, which are great big circular cells filled with fill, earth, providing the structural stability. These are the driven sheet piles, and they have some tie rods that go back underneath the boardwalk in the soil back there, attached to a so-called deadman. And we are finding that some of those structural rod connections are starting to disappear. They have bolts on the face of the sheet pile, and several of them have corroded and disappeared. Paul, the harbor master, is now inspecting these every 3 months to make sure we don't lose any more and have to do sort of a more emergency operation to try to sort of secure those back in. But so the basic story is that we need to do the same thing in the embayment as we've been planning to do on the rest of the boardwalk, which is driving the new FRP sheets in outside of the existing steel bulkhead, and then putting the infill of concrete. This photo shows, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there, some missing bolts and the corrosion pattern as water is seeping through there. We want to avoid losing all these, because then theoretically the sheet piles will start to be vulnerable to peeling away. And then here's a picture of some of the weep holes which have opened up, and we're losing the material that is back there.
Excuse me, this has all happened since you coated it like 7 years ago? Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, 7 years ago, there wasn't any sign that was observable of the tie rods having issues. And the weep holes were all widening, but they've certainly gotten considerably wider since then. So the project is essentially, and then I'll turn it over to Russell, but the project is essentially to complete what we were originally planning, which was the FRP sheets and the concrete infill along the sort of eastern run, east of the embayment, but also to do a similar treatment here in the embayment. And we're also looking, after a lot of internal discussion, to raise that the elevation of that bulkhead several feet higher in anticipation of sea level rise, so that it goes up approximately to the height of those timber curb benches, which are along the edge of the boardwalk. There's a lot of discussion about whether they should go lower or higher. Higher was not something desirable from the perspective of particularly the Waterfront Trust, which owns and controls the bulkhead and the boardwalk and so forth, because of the impact on people using the boardwalk and having an edge of basically a concrete wall along the water's edge there. At a certain point, the whole boardwalk is going to have to be reconstructed and elevated above its current grade. We rebuilt it 20 years ago, and few of us were thinking about sea level rise concerns at that point. The thought is at this point that the boardwalk has probably a good 20 more years left in it, and it's going to cost a couple of $1 million it cost about $2 million 20 years ago to do this project. It's going to cost a couple $1 million to elevate that boardwalk. So, like in many different things, we need to phase this work and do what really needs to be attended to now, and shift some of this other work off into the future. But we are looking to raise raise the elevation of the concrete seawall there. And we will have a number of different options as the years start to go by as to how best to protect the boardwalk and the park from flooding. So maybe with that, I'll turn it over to Russ to sort of walk through some more of the details.
Thank you. So yeah, just for clarification to your question, Dave, about the deterioration, we did coat the bulkhead. You can see the sheets here. The one piece of coating that seems to have stayed, we put on, seems to be the lower piece. But we have lost the heads of, I think it's 9 of the bolts. There's probably a total of about 10 times that number in that embayment. So it's between 5 and 10% of the bolts we've lost the heads from, it, like that photo showed. And there was secure the sheets back to the tie-back system in the ground.
Yeah, a lot of mysteries out there over the years.
Yeah. The other more severe corrosion holes that you saw were actually on the steel cells. So that's just been ongoing since the project in 2014, from the inspection then. Although they look pretty shocking, and they will continue to get worse if nothing is done, because we're sort of at or around water level and there's about 20 feet of water there. It's not actually in the highest stress area on those cells. So there's plenty of steel left, provided we can stop that corrosion from going any further now. If we can hop to the first proper plan there, thank you. So on that plan, this is at the extreme eastern end of the project. I hope I'm not confusing everyone. We flipped all the drawings upside down, as it were. The reason for that is so when we draw elevations and things, you're looking at it as if you were looking at it from the water. So on the left-hand end of that drawing is the area that has the bridge over the top, which links across to the fish pier. Yeah, just there. And that area, just going to the right of that, across to the first circle. That area, yeah, not the circle itself, but the area just to the left of that circle, that was all completed back in 2014. That's where we put that fabric, concrete-filled fabric, underneath the bridge to protect the revetment slope that was underneath the bridge there. That dark shaded line around it was where we actually put concrete around as a facing, because we couldn't use FRP sheets under there because we're underneath the bridge. We obviously can't drive sheets without taking the bridge off, and also the revetment was in the way. We just did conventional formwork under there back in 2014 and encased that area, but it only goes as far as the outshore face of the water, literally where that dark black line ends on the right-hand side. So these are the cells that Geordie was talking about. All the way through the project there, they're continuous, they've got the full circles, and then there's the little linking pieces in between. And the boardwalk sits on top of fill, which is placed inside those cells. And there's like concrete sonotube type foundations, which are placed into that fill. And that's what the boardwalk actually sits on. When you look from the water's edge, there's a existing concrete cap right along the water's edge there to give it the straight line along the edge of the boardwalk. So if we hop to the next plan, and that just shows you the cells continuing. So you've got the circles again continuing all the way through, and then you can just see on the right-hand end of this, we're just getting to where the embayment is. So you can see the last cell there, the last circle, and it wraps the corner going back into the embayment. And there's a riveted piece that makes the connection between that cell and the other style of construction that Geordie was talking about for the normal bulkhead in the embayment. If you just hop to the next. So this shows the embayment area. The the bulkheads in this area have a tieback system. It's all buried below ground, so you wouldn't know it's there from as far as the, when you're walking on the top side. But there's concrete dead men there, tie rods in the ground, and it all relies on those bolts that we're missing a few of now on the bulkhead. The other thing that was done with this, because the entire site has relatively shallow rock, you see those dashed lines going across the embayment there. There's actually a grid of steel beams which are on the mud line or just below the mud line there, which actually act as props for the bottom of those steel sheets to support the bottom edge of the steel sheets, because the sheets couldn't be driven into the ground far enough because of the rock. At the right-hand edge of the embayment is where we actually got to last time. Just go to the edge, that's it. So just right there, that's the existing concrete cap and the FRP sheets that were installed back in 2014. So that's where we got to as a project. It came from that western side and wrapped that corner back into the first part of the embayment. If you go to the next sheet. So this is along the western end, which was actually the area that was done with FRP sheets last time. You can see that elevation down the bottom, how the FRP sheets were driven down to rock each time. But all of that was done just as we've described earlier on, FRP sheets driven, attached back to the steel cells with steel brackets, and then the void behind was filled with concrete. So if we hop down again. So what we're proposing this time, is that I can't see the title on the plan. I think that's yeah, that's just the existing. Perhaps you can just skip past that. That's just showing the profile of the rock and everything along the riverbed there. Again, if we just skip past that one, this is just existing elevations.
Right.
I think we skipped too many somewhere.
Oh.
Or skipped something anyway.
This one, this one. This one.
Don't-
Going in sequence. So maybe further down.
Sure.
I'm not sure where you. What are you looking to show us? And I'll see if I can.
Yeah, I got it. I got to the sections too soon. That was all. Go
Oh,
further
okay.
down. Sorry, Julia. I was heading for the proposed plans.
Okay.
I didn't want to talk for too long, but
That's all right. Is it?
so it's
Your section's
sheet?
probably at the end.
yep, CP 101. You're on the right page.
Oh,
Right there.
CP 101. Here we go.
Right.
All
So
right.
what that's showing is the proposed plan at the top.
Mhm.
And it doesn't look like much on the plan, but you can see the line of FRP sheets and a new concrete cap along the water's edge there. So those sheets get driven past the edge of the existing concrete cap, so we don't have to touch the boardwalk at all. They're driven as close as we can get to that concrete cap and still get the end of a pump pipe down into the space so we can place concrete. Down at the bottom, you see the elevation that it would look like from the water with the FRP sheets driven down. And we'll drive them all as deep as we can get them, but we have to step the profile along the bottom like it shows here, just because the rock actually is very, very shallow right at the left-hand end, and it gets gradually deeper as you go down into the river and as you head to the west. So if we also, as part of this, just to point out, we are actually replacing all of the mooring piles for the floats as well. We need to take the existing ones out because they're in the way, but they've also got a lot of corrosion damage on those existing mooring piles. They're steel piles, and I think they've been repaired several times in the past by welding pieces onto the outside. So most of those have severe section loss on them already as far as the steel is concerned. So we'll just replace them with new ones as part of this project. So if you hop down to the next, and again, it's just more of the same as you had along here. So you see the concrete cap on the edge there with the FRP sheets and the elevation down below with the new mooring piles, the dark gray FRP sheets and the concrete cap along the top edge.
So do you have to put in bolts and deadmans to keep this thing supported?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll actually weld brackets onto the steel cells. So we'll do that above the water line, obviously, because we're not going to be using divers to do this. But we'll weld brackets onto that. And then what we can do is we can attach a beam, continuous beam to those brackets. And that will all be hidden away behind the FRP sheet piles. It's just exactly the same as we did the first go around back in 2014. So the only evidence of that beam is that you'll see the heads of stainless steel bolts we're using this time to give the added corrosion life because we're using FRP sheets. So all you see on the outside is a stainless steel washer and the stainless steel head of the bolt.
And how will you tie the bottom of it in?
It gets driven down into the mud line. So because we can't drive it very far, when we actually come to place the concrete in there, we place the concrete in lifts. So we don't build too much pressure in it any one go. So you pour, 5 or 6 feet of concrete, let it harden, come back and add another 5 or 6 feet, let it harden and so on to fill that space completely. So
you
what you
didn't
get,
have
what,
any more trouble driving the fiberglass sheets than they actually went down as far as the steel sheets?
we did drive them to refusal. We managed to install them. I don't know about as far as the steel sheets. I think from the pile records, I'm going from memory now. We weren't quite as far down as the steel cells. But really the goal was to get enough embedment to make sure that we were fully anchored at the bottom for placing that concrete.
It's good.
If we hop to the next plan, please. So this is the embayment area now, and what we're actually proposing to do is do the same treatment or similar treatment around the embayment. It's actually closer to what we did at the fish pier the first go around, because the fish pier was conventional sheet piles with tiebacks. So this go around, we're proposing to actually put FRP sheet piles and the concrete fill around the embayment. Before we do that, we plan to actually repair those missing bolts. We're going to need to do that by cutting a hole in the bulkhead to attach something to the beam that's behind. And then we'll weld a patch on it again. And again, you won't know we were in there doing that afterwards because we'll have the FRP and the concrete on the outside when we get done. But we will restore those connections prior to actually doing the encasement.
So is that the same thing you did at the fish pier part? You actually chased the tiebacks, or is this?
We didn't need to down at the fish pier. The tiebacks, they were actually rock anchors down there. So that the rock anchors themselves actually came through to the face of the bulkhead. So we just encapsulated all of that in the concrete at the fish pier. So this shows the proposed FRP sheets coming around, and they just butt onto the end of what we did last time, and we'll make a connection between the FRP. It'll probably need to be a bolted connection just to be able to join the two together. But all it'll be is like a seam between so that we can actually backfill everything with concrete again. That'll butt onto the end of the work that was done previously. And the concrete cap will come round and butt onto the end of what was done previously. So if we hop to the next one. Before I go there, actually, I'm going to drop down. Can we drop down to the sections, Julia? Because what I'd like to explain is what we're doing with the cap and the raising the cap elevation. So if you can, can you zoom at all on the screen?
Sure.
Maybe
Yep.
so
Where do you
go-
want me
go
to
the-
zoom?
Go zoom to the bottom left to detail D. Okay, so this is actually on the western side. So what you're looking at is a cross section there. You've got the mooring pile with the pointed cap on the top. And then as you work your way to the left on this, there's a brace that takes you back across. And then you see the area that's not filled in gray right below that. No, right there. Yep, that's the existing concrete cap that we put on top of the FRP sheets that were installed back in 2014. So that cap is actually attached to the cap of the on the steel cells, which is, I wish I could point.
Here?
Well, start at the very top, actually.
Yep.
Okay, so go up one, see where the X is in that rectangle?
Yes, here?
No.
Or here?
No, just in
Here.
there, yeah. That's the timber curb /
Oh,
timber bench
Mhm.
that Geordie was talking about,
Mhm.
that you could see in the photo. So when you walk along the top side of the boardwalk today, you have all of those big timber blocks that you can sit on. They sort of act like a combination rail, bench, a curb, whatever you want to call it. And the funny little piece that's sticking up is the attachment that exists or used to exist to the mooring piles when this project was originally constructed. And there's a timber rail, which is the extra little rectangle that's sitting on the top there. So that's how we left the project in 2014. So there's a connection between the new cap, which we put in, and then you just, yep, that one there, and then go slightly left. See where that black, yeah, that's it. That's the existing concrete cap on top of these steel cells that was predated the project that we had. So that was already there. Oops.
Sorry.
So the reason for zooming on that was just to show you what we would have done until we got into a discussion about sea level rise. The western side of this wouldn't be in this project, except what we're proposing to do this time is raise that cap so that we see the gray rectangle there. We're going to dowel into the top of the existing cap. We'll drill holes into it, use epoxy adhesive to put reinforcing steel in there. And we're going to connect a new piece of concrete that's going to come to the same level as that existing timber curb / bench. And just to hide away the, oops, because I'm sitting still. Just to hide away the top of the concrete and improve the appearance of it, we'll put a 2x12 timber on the top of that or some similar treatment. So it's not obviously concrete in your face. When you're up on the boardwalk, it'll still give that timber look to everything. That's how we're proposing to modify the existing cap, which we put in 2014. And obviously for the
You're
new,
saying that you're raising the height of the cap or the bulkhead, but you're really keeping it the same height as the timber cap that's running at the top, the seat or whatever you want to call it.
yeah, we're not going any higher than that. What we did is highest astronomical tide today is about elevation 6.1 on NAVD datum. We started looking at this, the conventional way with sea level rise and everything. Everyone wants you to look at, project year 2070. So about 50 years out. What we talked about with the city when we were having the discussions is that the boardwalk itself was probably only got a life of 15, 20 years left. And at that stage, the entire boardwalk is going to need to get raised, because if you project sea level rise forward about 20 years to 2040, highest astronomical tide is going to be at the timber decking elevation. Okay, so it's at the highest astronomical tide in 2040. If you use the extreme sea level projection, is about elevation 8.3. which is almost exactly the same as the existing walking surface for the boardwalk. So what that would mean is if the boardwalk truly has a life of 20 years left in it, you'd get to the point where you're going to have nuisance flooding of the boardwalk just from wave action and things. Because if you do get those highest astronomical tides, the still water elevation is the same as the boardwalk. So any wave will be breaking across the boardwalk like it was a beach. I know there's not big waves in the river, but it doesn't take much of a wave to, go a fair distance inshore on a flat surface like that. So the logic was we would start the process of dealing with sea level rise and also deal with that nuisance flooding problem that would come sometime in the next 20 years by raising the concrete to the level of that timber bench. And that was really a compromise because what that does is it deals with the nuisance flooding, but doesn't really necessarily deal with a sea level rise elevation for 2070. Because at that point, the boardwalk will be underwater. And at that point, there's multiple other flooding paths that need to actually get dealt with to prevent flooding of this area. But it was an easy change to incorporate, and it seemed to make a lot of sense to incorporate something to extend the life of everything out there.
Yeah, I'm just having a hard time visualizing the difference in this between the timber cap there and this concrete one, considering it's not any higher. I mean,
so the timber cap is totally open but underneath, and it's not continuous.
It's not continuous. Okay, and that's the difference.
They're short blocks, and they actually sit on even smaller blocks underneath them to raise them off the boardwalk.
Yeah, so it's not doing the.
Yeah, it's not going to do anything to stop the water coming through underneath and between.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds very logical. As far as where you have the brace coming now, that's catching the fender pile or the mooring pile.
Yeah.
Did you consider taking that up higher so that under different circumstances, high water circumstances, the floats and so forth wouldn't be restricted?
We certainly could take it higher. There's nothing to stop us going a little higher, but you can see the real constraints on the pile itself. So we'd have to put in this particular location. These piles already exist. They're already installed because they were installed in 2014.
Yeah.
So there's a limit to what we can do as modification, but it's a good point as far as the areas which we haven't touched yet are concerned. And it was actually raised, I think, by several people about trying to raise those brackets higher still. So if you can scroll up, Julie, to the one above, this is really what we're proposing this time around, which is essentially the same thing, except we're going to build the cap all in one go, obviously. There'll still be a construction joint, the changeover. But your point is well taken, Dave, that we could maybe raise that pile support bracket as high as possible to make sure or eliminate the problem of the floats binding up. So this is proposing the exact same cross section you've really been looking at, except that this go round we're asking for approval, obviously, to install the FRP sheets in this area and the concrete infill, which goes in lifts.
So in this picture, everything that's in gray is new. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, and the mooring pile itself is actually new.
Okay.
So has all the money that's needed to do this project already been allocated?
No. No, we have funding for our design and permitting. It's an expensive project. We don't have an itemized cost estimate from GEI yet, but their ballpark estimate have been around $4.8 million, which is a big chunk for little Newburyport. especially with a lot of other sort of infrastructure competing priorities. We are hoping to turn our attention to an economic development agency grant from the federal government, the so-called travel and tourism category. And there are other sources like the state's Seaport Economic Council grants. So we're looking to primarily approach this from a grant funding perspective. Our initial burst of work here is to figure out our plan approach, get some of at least the initial permitting done, have Russell give us a more thorough cost estimate, and then start seeking some of those grants. We wouldn't be able to do this work until next winter, a year from now, because of timing with avoiding anadromous fish runs and avoiding the boating season and so forth. So we do have a bit of time to try to assemble grants.
Do you see it fitting into the, I know that, well, supposedly, we'll see what happens, but isn't there supposed to be money set aside for resiliency projects? I don't know if this would count as a resiliency. It seems like it could, but I don't know if that's what you're thinking.
Are you talking about municipal funding set aside for resiliency?
Yeah, well, through the infrastructure bill, if it goes through.
Right. Certainly it can be characterized in that way. There are a bunch of competing priorities, including the city's public water supply in terms of resiliency, which at least to date has been getting more attention from the city's leadership. So we'll have to figure this out as we go along. But because of the worsening conditions of the bulkhead, we've been trying to get this on a priority capital project list every year, and it had kept getting sort of pushed back down in the pack by the leadership. This year, the conditions were clearly getting worse enough that it got sort of pushed back up to the level of let's engineer this project, let's get it permitted, re-permitted as necessary, and seek funding so we can try to get it done.
Thank you.
So I assume all this work would be done from a barge. There wouldn't be, vehicles of any sort on the boardwalk itself.
No vehicles on the boardwalk, maybe some people, maybe some guys working just for access reasons, but the piles will be driven from a barge. Concrete would probably be pumped, the last time it certainly was, from the parking lots behind. So we had a big concrete pump back there that was parked back in the parking lot, and the concrete trucks would deliver into the pump, and then it was just going up and over the boardwalk straight into the space.
And when you're driving these things, I assume you're creating a bit of silt and turbidity in the water. Is there something to contain that as part of this? Or
there's no proposal to use a turbidity curtain or anything, and that's really just because of the currents in the river. It's almost impossible to actually secure something like that. You can do a debris boom or something. There's not actually that much driving depth when it comes right down to it in terms of installing these, because we're only going that short distance into the mud line down below.
As you were explaining the construction, I'm wondering, is the boardwalk going to be shut down for periods of time, or how is that? I'm not sure how it worked out last time, but is the boardwalk not going to be used by the public for periods of time?
So last time when we were driving the sheet piles, we closed off part of the width just to keep people away from the pile driving along the edge. I mean, everything is actually going on outshore of the boardwalk, but we didn't want anyone getting too close to the operation. When the concrete is going in and they're pumping overhead, we were closing the boardwalk for the area where they were pumping over people's heads, or would have been pumping over people's heads. So that's relatively short duration. You know, it's the pile driving last time. I want to say that was over a period of about 3 to 4 months. You know, so there is a sort of a moving zone of work where we reduced the width, but the concrete actually was relatively fast relative to that. And they were maybe doing concrete placement a couple of times a week. So it was maybe 2 days in the week or whatever when they would just close off locally where the pump was located.
I would also note that this work was also going on in the winter when there was much less public use of the boardwalk, just because people don't seem to really want to be out with the cold winter winds and the ice and so forth. So
That was how
really,
sorry.
I was just going to say, it really didn't feel like any conflict last time around, and don't anticipate that it would this time either.
Okay.
We waited until the water had warmed up just that little bit to actually place concrete. So we weren't actually placing concrete until I want to say it was about the middle of March. So that was the sort of time frame.
So there's another project, you know, some sort of the trail going through the waterfront park. There were plans distributed, I don't know, 6 months ago. People were reviewing them, you know, which way. I don't remember what it was part of, but.
You're talking about the Market Landing Park expansion project,
Yeah,
Steve?
is there any
Yeah.
conflict?
No, there's no conflict at all. So that project, you know, we've actually had a fair bit of coordination between these two parallel projects, but that project essentially stops at the existing berm behind the boardwalk. And that project assumes that there's no change in conditions to the berm and the boardwalk and even the bulkhead. It doesn't really matter. So that's the sort of limits of work of the Market Landing Park expansion.
Okay.
Let me unmute myself. So do we have anything else that we are interested in?
Well, I'm going to rely on David to ask he already has the questions about this, because this is way out of my knowledge.
Yeah, that's pretty
The
much it.
only thing I was going to ask is, do you have a DPW number or DEP number?
Yes, there is a DEP number. They got that. It's 051-1055. And no,
Okay, so
there were no
that's not-
DEP comments.
That's not a hang up here and no comments. No, I mean, it seems like you're doing just like you did before, except a couple modifications and apparently a couple improvements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a presentation with the resiliency committee on all this too. So it's got their seal of approval for the most part. So if we're done, are there any questions from the public? Raise your hand if so. I am not seeing any hands raising. What do we want to do?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes,
Carol Wagon. I'll take that as a yes.
Oh, sorry, yes.
And I say yes too. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item on the agenda is Ferdinand Benedetti Jr. and Mary Ellen Ellers, 25 Basin Street, notice of intent.
Okay,
Thanks a lot. I'm going to sign off just as you transition to your next project.
thanks,
Thank you,
Jordy.
Okay.
All right, talk to you later.
Great. All right. right, so on this one, Tom is here, promote to panelist. I'm assuming Lisa also be promoted to panelist. And Fred Venditti. Okay, so anyone else?
Is
you-
Bill Barrett out there?
No,
There.
Tom, this is.
Oh.
We're on 25
Oh, I'm
Basin.
sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah,
No, Andy
Andy Sidford.
Andy Sidford, got it.
He is there.
Voting you all to panelists. Okay,
Okay.
hopefully that works. And Tom, you can let me know how to go through these sheets, okay?
Yeah, if you'd like, I can just, I've got a presentation file where I just deleted a lot of the paperwork parts of it.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. All right, here we go, share. Okay, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. I'm here with Lisa Mead and with Andrew Sidford. Andy's the architect on the project. So I'm here on behalf of Fred Venditti and Mary Ellen Ellers, and they have this property at 25 Basin Street. I think the commission's somewhat familiar with it, where they had some landscaping gone awry a few years back, and they did a restoration plan working with you guys on that. So they are looking to retire into their home here. They currently split their time between New York and here, where Fred works. So the property is located on Plum Island on the basin. It's actually a double lot. It's got a lot down right up against the basin over here that connects to the main lot here. There's the existing building, driveway. There's this lawn area right here. And then the rest of the area is essentially vegetated dune. There is a buried section of revetment in this area, and there's also some buried telephone poles or creosote timbers in that area there too. Natural heritage habitat runs down through a portion of the property, but not within the area we're proposing for work. The area is located mapped within the VE 17. Here are some pictures just to kind of remind you what it looks like. This is the big lawn area. There's some landscape beds up against the deck in the back. Shed, raised timber garden, fence along the back, and sort of pea stone driveway in the front. The current entry on the front is off on the right-hand side if you're standing on the roadway. And then there's a side entry on the southern end of the building there. So what's proposed, Andy has designed a new entry, which essentially moves the entry from this side of the building over to this side of the building. And then on the back side, a single-story addition, because we're in the VE zone, that actually has to be elevated up a little bit above the current first floor. So this does require interior stairs to reach. And this is a side view of the addition that's proposed. Again, it's a single story here, and you can see where there's interior stairway coming up. One thing I do want to note is we are going to be changing the first floor elevation, lifting that up by at least 4 inches in response to the request for the regulatory analysis under the land subject to coastal storm flowage regs. So here's the site plan, basically within the lawn area and within the area of existing deck. We come out with the addition, it's all pile supported. There's a deck up here that is at the same elevation as the floor in the addition. We remove a section of the deck, the existing deck here. We also remove the deck, obviously, where we're building the addition here. The entire thing is open, pile supported, and elevated above the flood by the requirements of the building code and FEMA. And our planting areas are down in a big sand area that's over in this section here, as well as an area here. And obviously the area we're removing deck here. In the area we're removing the existing entryway here. The impact areas are within the pea stone and landscape beds that are over here. And also within, again, within lawn and deck. We're proposing to convert an area of lawn over on this side as well to a patio area and connect over to the existing shed and to get access to the raised bed that's over here. And we recognize that during work, this whole area is going to be disturbed. So any area that's disturbed will be replanted with native vegetation.
So Tom, before we move on,
Yeah.
the darker brown there is all addition.
So the darker brown, this area here is the addition.
Okay.
And then this is a proposed deck section right here.
Okay.
And this is proposed reconstructed deck is really just, there'll be some minor work done it. This is actually in really good shape. So basically by reconstruction, we're removing it and we'll be ending it right where there's an existing footing right here. And then we'll be cutting it and attaching it with some, or supporting it with piles on this end. And we do have 2 feet clear under that. And then this is a new entry right here. And then the green area with the red, this sort of red stuff goes away and we plant this. And again, here as well, we're planting.
And just to give you an idea, Steve, the addition is 1 story, of course, and it's 464 square feet.
Right. So it's
Okay.
464. Now there was a question from Julia, and I want to point out that what we did, we provided the structure increase, which is made up a bit. We always separate out when we do the plans with Everett, building and deck and stairs. And the total increase is 18.4% of footprint. So it's under the 20%. So it's not a redevelopment. That's the reason we include this table. This is a footprint that's shown here. And this 59.7% increase is just a footprint increase here. It is not the same number that's used to comply with the substantial improvement increase, which is a habitable space number. And we did review that, and we are under 25. There's also the provision where you can certify the existing foundation under that section as well.
Tom, I have to interrupt. I'm
Yeah.
confused about what you're saying. The building itself, I'm
Right.
considering is habitable living space, right?
Right,
Not the deck and stairs.
right.
So the building is increasing from 774 to 1236. That's the 59% increase.
But in the guidance there and the regulations, and we'll get you all these numbers. It actually talks about habitable space in terms of living space. So it's a floor area calculation in that section, the way the regulations read. Plus, we could also provide the
So wait, I just need to clarify. So when you say building existing 774,
that's
that is the footprint, not
footprint,
the habitable living.
not
space.
the habitable living space.
And then the proposed is 12. So you need to clarify that, get us the correct.
Right, we
calculation so
understand.
that-
Yeah, we understand. This was for, as you know, in the definitions of development and redevelopment, anything in the AO or VE zone.
I know that. Yeah.
Is less than 20. That's what this table was about. We will give you a table showing the 25% number in terms of habitable space change. The way this has to tie in, because it's sort of mid floor on this structure, it actually takes away some habitable space in the main dwelling too. So we're going to give you the whole calculation and all that prior to the next meeting. We focused more on the substantial improvement based on the 50% cost item. And for that, we've provided you with the appraisal before and the appraisal after. We kind of went through this whole 25% thing. I mean, I think we've been at this now for about 8 months or longer. So we went through it early enough on. And when you asked a question, it took me a couple seconds to realize which section you were talking about. I do also want to note that the other thing we're doing is We're getting rid of the fence that is currently fencing in the lawn area. And we'll be putting in an open fence. We've got this basically, there's already like this post and rope fence that goes down the walkway to the water. And we're basically going to run a post and rope fence along the back and have a path that goes around the back side of the addition to join with the path that takes you down to the water.
So in addition to the plantings that you're showing here, there's also some out in the beach area?
Yeah, this area here. So this is what triggers, this has been sent to Natural Heritage. And so another reason we're going to need to continue is we're still within the 30-day clock. And the Natural Heritage habitat, which is shown right here. So we are proposing planting down here and here. In addition to, we're converting all of this lawn area to native in here. And as part of that, converting, the outdoor space to one of a, an outdoor sort of sitting and patio area off there.
So is all the lawn going away?
Yes.
It looks like it's going away, but most of it's becoming either new building space or patio.
Yeah. So this area here, sort of between the addition and the patio, this area here, and this area here all kind of goes away and becomes native vegetation.
And do the neighbors to what I guess is the north, do they cross this property to get to the beach? I'm just wondering if there's a pathway through there that.
Yeah, let's go back to the aerial. I think that's probably the best way to answer that question. So the path kind of goes down here, and we're talking about planting in this area and down in this area.
Okay. So they don't have any use of that property?
No, and it belongs to
Right.
Fred and Mary Ellen. So
It looks like you were showing a planting area off their property.
no, so this is just the assessor's line. You have to go back to, let's see, sorry. Go to Everett's actual survey plan. The assessor's line is a tie line, but the ownership extends further. So all of the work we're talking about is on property.
Okay.
What are you proposing to plant in those areas?
Right now, just dune grass, which I think is appropriate because that's what's growing around them, around those areas. But we're open to increasing the species diversity if that's something you would like.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that area gets inundated or what the water conditions are in there and what would.
So
actually
mean high
survive.
water is right here at 4.1. And we've intentionally tried to keep all of our plantings above elevation 6.1, which is the highest spring tide line. So everything in here is at like 7. I think over here it's at 7, and here we might get down to 6.1 or 7. Let me take a look. Yeah, so here, sorry, here's mean high water. Here is the highest spring tide. So we're a foot above the highest spring tide. So yeah, it might get some water, but certainly dune grass will grow in that situation. But again, we're open to adding in some species diversity if the commission would like that. Up in this area.
I wouldn't object to that.
Yeah, so in this area here, we certainly would be looking to do some native shrubs. We have not engaged with the landscape architect or anybody to design stuff. I know that Fred is interested in replanting and moving some of the plants that are growing up along the deck here. They absolutely love these things. So some of this might actually get transplanted into those areas up against the house in the front or over onto that landscape bed back here.
What is that?
I honestly don't know. But it's certainly got a lot of three-dimensional characteristics, which would be good for trapping sand and all that.
As far as the appraisal and so forth, we kind of went through this on a previous project, and it was explained to me that someone has a nice bedroom, you improve the bedroom, but you're really not improving the value of the house. I don't really see this as being so much in the same category because it's all the addition of new construction. And if I'm to understand this right, you've gone from a house worth 463,000 to 575,000, which is like about 112,000 or something in that order for
No.
piles. Nope. Go ahead.
No, Mr. Vine, the house right now is valued at 980. It goes up to 1.15 million. There's a $169,000 difference. The addition that's being added on is an extension of the kitchen.
Right.
Well,
I'm wondering
it's
if
a new-
you may
Kitchen,
be looking at the appraisal for the other project that's after this one.
I understand what David is saying. This is different in that what he means is you're adding on an entirely new space to the house. You're not just renovating interior space. It's you're renovating the interior space and adding on a new element to the structure. Am I getting at what you're getting at, David?
yeah, that is what I'm getting at. And I mean, a 400 square foot kitchen is remarkable. If that's all that's going on here, I'm not. I tried to go through this. I had limited ability to do so, and I'm kind of suggesting that I think I'd like for somebody that understands this better than I do, far better than I do, to look at this.
Yeah, can
Well,
I
I think-
suggest last time you had the assessor look at it because they speak the language?
Yeah, I think the last one was quite a bit simpler in that they were turning single bedrooms into 2 bedrooms, and it was a lot more contained within the footprint as opposed to this one.
Right, but I think the values, Lisa was just talking about the values. I mean, the current
Yeah.
structure is valued at like 900, and the with improvements, it's not like we're.
Well, no,
saying
I
it's
mean,
not much of an
no,
increase.
it's Tom, I mean, I got to correct you because we're not talking about the value of the property. We're talking about the value of just the structure.
Right.
So you have to subtract out the value of the property and just look at what the structure is being, how much the structure is being improved.
Correct. And so if you do that, so he does 490 to David's point, right? That's the existing value of the improvements. And then he increases it to, hang on. a minute. 575, I think, right. So it's a 90, 80, 89 or $90,000 improvement. We're fine to have this reviewed. I ask that you have the assessor review it again. And then if the assessor does not feel competent to do so, to send it out. I'm fully confident that Greg Story has done an appropriate and professional job here, given what happens to the house. So, I mean, you obviously have that prerogative and we don't have an issue with that, but I would request you start with the assessor.
I don't know. I think I'm not certain that we have to start with the assessor. I think it's kind of, I mean, that's not really what she does, is what I understand.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, it's apples and oranges in certain way, because if we wanted to really go with the assessed value route and what the assessor is really good at, then we would have asked you, or maybe we should just ask you for the assessed value in comparison to the construction cost estimate. And that might be the better way to look at this. But I think David's right. I mean, we can't keep going to the assessor for input on an appraisal. That's not, they don't do it the same way necessarily. And it's, if we're going to look at assessed values, we should be looking at construction estimates as well.
Right, I don't, so again, I don't, the last one I think you gave to the assessor, because we were 2 or 3 meetings down the road, right?
Yeah,
And we,
yeah.
and Greg had submitted like, several follow-up letters. So all I'm saying is, we have great confidence in the professional status of Greg's story. And if you want to have it reviewed, then we should have it reviewed. We don't have an issue with that.
Right. And,
Okay.
and the fact that you're not going to meet on the 21st and we go to January, I think gives us some time, but we'd like to get that started so we don't go 2 or 3 meetings down the road.
It's fine with me.
So,
Julia,
other than increasing species diversity, maybe I can give you a list of species, et cetera, that would be planted in these different areas. Are there any other questions or comments about the project?
Yeah, well, the only thing I was thinking about, I know you're gonna do that planting up on that corner where there is a pathway. I have pictures of you guys in the way. Can you go further up on that?
Yeah. Oh, yep. Right there.
Yeah. I guess I do have a little concern with you planting there and then folks walking down there, because I'm looking at the aerial also.
Yeah.
And it
We can
seems like-
protect it with snow fence?
Yeah.
that? So why don't we, I'll take a look at that area. It does look like there is some fencing and there's also this guardrail, but we can look at protecting our planting area with snow fence.
I think, Tom, it might be helpful to have a site visit where we have
Sure.
some of these areas staked out in the
Yeah.
fields, so we can see really where these plantings are going on the ground, and the location of the addition, if that could be staked out, including the deck and things like that. And also, I know you provided today the review of the land subject to coastal storm flowage regulations, but we haven't had a chance to look at those yet. So rather than asking questions about those elements tonight, maybe we can just hold off and ask and have that discussion at the next meeting as well.
Right. I mean, I can give you my very quick overview, and you certainly can read through it all, before providing questions about it. But in general, there's a couple main components to what you have in those regs. One is, does it change the way floods flow through the site? And if anything, there's an improvement because we're removing deck that is lower down to the ground, and we're putting in something that's elevated higher up, so that there's less obstruction to the typical flood. We do have, and in the updated plans that we submit, we will have 40 inches from the current flood elevation to the first floor. So we'll provide sufficient room for sea level rise. And so if you got the sea level rise, and how does it affect the migration, et cetera, of the resource area? And I would just put to you that the addition itself is not impacting the resource area. The current structure has that impact, but we're not changing that other than getting rid of a little bit. So overall, based on the analysis I did, it appears we meet those regulations. And once you've had a chance to read through the write-up, I'm happy to answer questions, or I'm happy to answer them now if you'd like.
Well, I don't have anything on that. Anybody have any questions right now on that?
No, I didn't really get a chance to look at it.
No, that's fine. That's understandable. It was a lot to write up, and unfortunately, Thursday, Friday, and a good chunk of yesterday were in the field, so I didn't have a lot of time to do it.
So Julia, let us know if you need it. I mean, you obviously have Greg's 2 appraisals. So let me know if there's anything else you need related to that, so that we can help move that along. You're muted.
Sorry, there is someone who the planning office can go to for an appraisal for peer review. So I just would need to contact them and see if they could start on this, if that is what the commission wants to.
Can you tell me who that would be?
I don't have the, wasn't prepared with that tonight. I have the name in my office.
We obviously would, we'd want to see the,
As far as the appraisal and so forth, is there any other city departments or so forth that are concerned with that as well? I'm just thinking if you have to prove it to us, you have to prove it to someone else, or it's just in our regs?
just
Yeah.
your regs, David. We have to go to the zoning board for a special permit for nonconformities. But they don't have that. They
Yeah.
have, the FAR calculation, right? But
I
that's
do
it.
believe,
You're right.
do they not have the 25% increase in living area rule for
No,
under FEMA for substantial improvement? Under
the
FEMA
zoning
building?
board doesn't do that. You-
Okay, so that would be with the building commissioner's office.
Correct.
Okay. So assume we don't have much more right now. Doesn't sound like we have a lot.
Yeah, I would just, if there were any other questions or comments that we could make sure we have addressed, so we have them all addressed before we come back in, since it won't be till January.
Well, it seems like we should try to figure out a time to do a site visit so that we can understand the project better before you come back.
All right, let me just open it up to the public first. Anybody from the public want to say something? Raise your hand if so. All right, I'm not seeing any raised hands. So what do we want to do for a site visit? Anybody got suggestions?
Sometime before Christmas.
Sooner better, probably.
What's that, David?
Probably the sooner the better. It gets harder and harder as you get closer to Christmas.
It's supposed to snow tomorrow.
What about next Tuesday? Is anyone free next Tuesday? Either,
I
I
cannot.
think that works for me. Obviously, it's getting dark sooner and sooner, so if we're going to do afternoon, we'd have to do probably by 3 or 3:30 at the latest.
I would have to do morning.
Morning's perfect.
I can do anytime.
Yeah,
Tuesday morning? That works.
yeah, morning's fine. As long as it's not 7
Right.
a.m.
can we do like 10:30 or 11 on Tuesday, or is that too late for people?
10:30 sounds good.
Fine with me.
Okay, the tide is probably not an issue for what we're gonna see. I don't know what the tide's gonna be, but it probably doesn't matter, Tom.
I don't think it matters. We're not proposing to do anything within the tidal range, but if you'd like to know, I can take a quick look and tell you.
If that's the case, then, it's not, 10:30 sounds great.
Yeah, the high that morning is at 9 o'clock. So it'll be a high-ish tide. at
That's
10:30.
probably good, just so we can see what the conditions would be like.
I'm assuming I read my tide table right. I looked quickly, but I think I've got it right.
So that's 10:30 on the 14th.
Yep. And I'll talk to Everett about getting stakeout done. And if for any reason he can't, I'll have the points in my GPS and I'll put some stakes out. They just won't be survey located.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. All right, with that, I guess, unless there's anything else, we'd request continuance to your next scheduled meeting, which I understand is going to be the first week in January.
Okay.
January 4th, I believe.
January.
Yep. Get a motion?
Motion to
Motion.
continue to January 4th.
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you.
All
very
right. All right.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, before we move on, can I ask you to bring 2 Spofford off the table and continue that to the same meeting? to January 4th.
Okay. It's off the table.
Motion to continue to January 4th.
Second,
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
Carol Hagan,
Yes,
sorry, David Vine,
yes,
and I vote yes. All right. Now can I get a motion to close the public hearings?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
yes.
and I vote yes. All right, first of all, let's,
Can we take a short break?
yes. I was gonna do that too. Thanks for breaking in. All right, we'll do a 5-minute break. There's Dan. So let's bring this meeting back to order. Want to go to the orders of conditions first to get rid of that. And we just have the bulkhead, yes?
Right.
Yes, hold on a sec. Let me back to our agenda. Right. So enforcement, and then we can just do the bulkhead order.
Yeah, I'm gonna do we'll do the order condition first,
Okay, okay,
since that shouldn't be too complex.
sure. Yep.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think we talked about any special conditions on that one.
No,
Nope.
Julia, do you have the order of conditions for the previous project that we?
I do. Actually, that's a good point. I mean, I don't have it where I can pull it up right now, but I can look and see if there were any minor special conditions that we put onto that one. And I could borrow those and add them in if they seemed applicable. But yeah, there were nothing special discussed, with applications like this also. When you have an engineering consultant involved, there's usually a lot of detail in the plans and in the specifications and permitting in general that you don't need to add a whole lot of extra stuff. So. No, I don't have the order of conditions.
okay.
I don't know if I have a vague recollection of a condition related to refueling any kind of equipment or anything like that.
Right.
Yep,
Yep. That's actually, that might even be one of our standard conditions, but because the entire work area is within the riverfront area, we may have added something more specific in this case. So normally we say there may be no refueling of vehicles within the resource area or buffer zone. But sometimes if there's staging areas within the buffer zone, then it's hard to accomplish that. In this case, I think they should be able to stay out.
I would think, if you've got a pile driver on a barge, you're gonna have to refuel it at some point. You're not gonna move that pile driver on the dry land to do it, I don't think. But
Right.
there should be some constraint on what they can do. I don't.
Yeah. We didn't talk about that under construction. The crane barge would be in the river, yep. Relocating as the project proceeds, etc. Concrete fill via truck through parking lots, the boardwalk pumped in place. They said they're not using a silk curtain. And they're not doing dewatering.
Yeah,
So no, they're not. They didn't provide any of those types of construction details. So would probably be a good idea to see if we put anything in our old order of conditions related to some of these issues. They'll also have to comply with the state natural heritage endangered species program conditions and anything that comes out of the other state agencies.
Yeah.
on this.
On time
Um,
of year. Also, any demolition that falls into the water should be retrieved, something
Yeah.
along those lines.
yeah, so I mean, maybe what I could do is I could draft something. We don't have another meeting till January. Sure, they're gonna want to take a look at this. I was gonna say I could go back and find out what the conditions were and draft something. Unless you just want to talk about them now, and we could create some conditions related to debris that might fall in the river, must be removed immediately, by hand at the end of it, or at the end of each workday. Usually that's, I wish I had a draft with me.
Julia, with regard to refueling, maybe you could
Yep.
request that they provide a refueling plan if
Yeah.
Yeah,
is to occur on the barge. And
okay,
at least it's something that's considered and we can take a look at it.
yeah, that's a great idea.
So we have, what do we have, 21 days to issue an order of conditions?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we can wait.
yeah,
We
but
can
then you'd
hold
have to
off.
have a meeting, then we'd have to have a meeting to have you vote on it within 21 days.
But the 4th is within 21 days, isn't it?
I think the 4th is like a month.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry.
But
Sorry,
what we
Elizabeth.
could say is that prior to start of work, a refueling plan shall be provided to the commission that describes how refueling will take place if within a resource area, to ensure that there will be no spillage, leakage or spillage of fuel into the river or other resource areas. Any debris, any construction related debris that enters the river or other resource area shall be removed immediately by hand or at the end of each workday as necessary.
Yeah.
I think that'd be kind of hard to enforce. You know, if it falls into the water and then it, you know, it's.
Well, it's one of those things that if someone sees something, they can go back to the order of conditions and say, you need to be removing these things by hand. Like even things like coffee cups, you know, stuff that just workers are,
Right.
you know, anything that falls in needs to get retrieved immediately, and or at the end of each workday. I mean, because they should be checking at the end of each workday the whole area to make sure that they haven't left anything in the resource area that could blow into the resource area or anything like that. I mean, it's just one of those things. They have to have the order of conditions on site, so all the workers should be aware that they can't be letting stuff just go.
Okay.
I mean, construction's not going to happen for a long time, and there are going to be specifications. So I would think we can approve in this generality, and if there was anything added, I'm sure Jordy could add it to the specifications or whatever.
Yeah. What if we asked for construction? What if we asked for a construction management plan that included a location of staging areas, details on refueling locations and protective measures, and details on preventative measures for construction related debris falling into the water?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that sounds
Something
real
like
good.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's really what we're after here.
Right, yeah.
You there?
Ooh, yes, we are.
Yeah, I think so.
Julie's writing.
Yeah.
But someone can make a motion.
Make a motion to issue the order of conditions.
Second.
Roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Lagan,
yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Final item on the agenda, enforcement violations, 3Q Street.
We need to go back to, well, we still have Lisa and Tom. So, Tom, would you like to?
Yeah,
that
why
what-
don't I share? Yeah.
Kind of like bad pennies, right, Julie?
What's that?
They kind of like bad pennies. We just
Yeah.
keep showing up.
In the
I
back.
wouldn't call you bad pennies.
I know.
All right. So I need you to stop sharing.
Right.
Okay. Okay, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting here on behalf of Mark Drago, here with Lisa Mead and Bill Barrett, I think maybe out there if he is, if you wanted to elevate him too. Bill has done the,
I don't see him.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
That's fine. Basically what we've done, it's been quite a bit of effort, as these things always are. I became involved shortly before your site visit on the site, and one of the issues, I think, as you know, is that we had to kind of establish the pre-existing conditions that existed on the site at the time that the client bought the property, because there were some landscaping changes that had occurred prior to the work that was permitted on the house, not to mention the issues with the garage falling down, et cetera. So what we've done based on a review of aerial photographs, there were not many listing photographs from when the property was sold, but there were a few. We took a look at all of those and we compiled this plan right here on the right-hand side. There was a clear gravel driveway, and then there was also an area that, you know, we could see in some aerial cars parked over towards the garage. It appears to have been sort of a gravel sand mix with a little bit of lawn grasses coming in. The area around the house is all lawn grass up to the back of the seawall. There was a set of stairs basically coming up and exiting left. My understanding is there were also, but we don't have photographs to prove it, there were also 2 footings in on this side that had nothing on them, but we didn't have photos to prove it. And there's a seasonal set of stairs that the neighbor puts over on his property over here to get down. What we have done is come up with a proposed plan that shows some of the after the fact elements as well as what we're proposing to do going forward. So I'm going to zoom down to that. Let's see. Okay. So a couple of things. We are looking at relocating the accessory structure over here from where the garage was. We have shown on the pre-existing condition plan and the existing, the actual FEMA limit of the X zone. That was kind of approximated on the prior plan by an elevation, but this is actually using the data layer from FEMA to apply it to the state plane, the plan which is in state plane. So this is the exact line as mapped by FEMA. So the accessory structure here, we get rid of the wood platform and instead we have a deck that goes here. The remains of the concrete foundation as well as concrete that's under the pea stone all around here all gets removed. We basically saw cut about 1 foot off the existing foundation and remove all of that concrete. And then we adjust the pea stone drive, vegetate portions of it in these areas. And we basically establish a sort of this pea stone kind of recreation area over here, a little bit of native plantings here. So going through the sort of after the fact things, let me just kind of walk through each item. So the P-stone pathways, they're something that I believe were permittable, and we're proposing to keep those. That's one of the after the fact things. The plantings that went in, so there's a bunch of plantings that went in along the wall up in here. And there's basically like riverstone used as the planting bed, and none of those plantings that went in are native, but none of them are invasive. And they all have a form that leads me to believe they're providing some dune value. We're proposing to keep them. The plants that went in, there's some hydrangea, and I can't confirm the actual Latin species of it. So I'm assuming that it's one of the non-native hydrangeas. It could conceivably be a native, but
Tom, can I just interrupt real quick? Because
Yep.
I'm having trouble with this, and correct me, commissioners, if you are okay with the way this is going, but I feel like we're conflating what happened we have a pre-existing condition,
right.
and then we're mixing it up with the proposed new condition, which is even past what we wanted to do, which was look at what was the landscaping that was done without permits and what were the impacts of that, and quantify whether or not there was any mitigation needed. And then
Right.
then we could determine whether or not there was any mitigation needed, if anything needed to be changed or repaired or removed. And then we could look at a proposed plan for the garage and anything else that you want to do. But I feel like you've skipped a step, and you've gone from the pre-existing to now the post-construction and proposed new condition into the future. And we still
Yeah.
don't have an understanding of what the impacts of the violations were.
Right. So this may help. And you're right. We didn't give you an interim plan that doesn't show the garage and this proposed rearranging of the driveway. What we did is we tried to treat this is the existing condition that we're comparing against for everything.
Is that prior to?
This is prior to anything happening on site. The one thing I noticed, Everett wasn't able to turn off the pile field, so never mind the brown dots on this side. But this is what the site looked like on the day of sale that he bought the property.
Right.
Okay, so what we did is we said, okay, never mind the middle stuff, is going from here to here. And I've got a table for you to kind of look at the different impacts. Going from here to here with everything we're proposing plus the after the fact points. Is it something that has an environmental impact? Is there mitigation needed? And I think I'm getting there, but if you needed us to create numbers for the interim part, we could do that. But the mitigation is kind of built into what I'm proposing.
Okay, I'm just.
Well, the other issue is we have a lot of things off on the upper left there. I'm not even interested in discussing the P-stone or the garage or anything else. That we're in an enforcement hearing or whatever. We're discussing enforcement, and there are major issues that need to be, there are major things that need to be removed. In my estimation, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing concrete and paver facing to remain. As far as I'm concerned, that bluestone's got to go, every bit of it, and especially the bluestone that was put on city property. On blocks on city property, that's got to go. Those large stones, which are about the size of a concrete block, they got to go.
Okay.
This stuff is not permittable. It's all got to go. Before we discuss any of this stuff that you have illustrated below.
Right. So let's talk about those items. In terms of the stones, I neglected to address those within the write-up, but the stones, I would agree, the stones are something that that, you know, these big things here, I'm not talking about the river stone bed that the landscape is in, but those bigger stones. You know, those can be removed. Everett initially called it concrete and paver facing. So it's the bluestone facing. The one thing that the bluestone facing does do with this wall is it's an existing concrete block wall that is a shear face, shear top. And as you guys know, those shear faces and shear structures tend to reflect energy during a flooding event. And the one thing that the bluestone facing does is it roughs up that back side. And we're in an area where I would expect that the flood is not kind of coming in this way. It's likely flooding kind of with the river and running in a direction. So this would serve to roughen it up. So I was proposing that we keep those elements because of that.
So that was not permitted. That's a hard structure that was not permitted. I mean, you know, and we still haven't even addressed the underlying new concrete under which those are under those the bluestones. There's obviously concrete there, and it's yet to be addressed.
Yeah. So look, if the bluestone during the site visit, the bluestone did not seem like it was something that wasn't definitely a problem. It was something to be discussed. And my look at it was, okay, the problem there is the concrete block wall, right? It's been there forever. And that's what's really causing the obstruction to the floodwaters, et cetera. The bluestone facing was not permitted. You're absolutely right. It's not something that would normally go on, but there are some things about it that actually help in terms of roughening up and impacting floodwaters. If so, you know, we've come in with our rationale for why we think maybe it could be kept, but if the commission is not on for that, then we can talk about, you know, getting it removed and getting a schedule for doing that.
It is a substantial change. The size of that wall is probably a quarter the size of the concrete blocks. It is a substantial change, an unpermitted substantial change that I have no doubt that it's anchored to those blocks. So there may very well be damage to those blocks, and it extends onto city property too, to the north there. That
can hear or
when you get up to the top, that corner right there where it juts to the right, that is city property.
Right. Okay.
And it goes all the way up there. That all has to go, in my opinion. It's all gotta go. And those blocks, whatever was done to those blocks has to be repaired, and those stones gotta go. And I'm of the opinion that the commission needs to get serious about it and issue an enforcement order to have those done in a reasonable period of time. And by reasonable, I don't see any more than 2 months to be reasonable, because once they get in there, they can take it apart and pull it out. But it's got to go. Period. And we've been at this for a couple of months already, and
right. Well, and I understand that, you know, we came in and to put together what the condition was like beforehand is a tremendous amount of work, and getting on a surveyor's workload right now is also difficult. People are stretched thin with workload. So we've been working, trying to get this together and get into you as quickly as we could. What I would like to do is let's go through point by point each of the things that are after the fact. We'll also talk about what's proposed, but
Tom, I got to stop you there. I don't want to talk about what's proposed.
Okay,
and
then that's
again, if
then
the commissioners do.
talk
That's
about.
fine.
Okay, so
It's very much muddying the waters right now to be looking at this.
So let's talk about after the fact stuff. All right. So on the after the fact stuff. So we'll get to everything I think that's on your list. If we don't, we'll talk about those. So as I started with the Keystone pathways, I don't see them as being a tremendous problem. I think there's something you would have permitted.
But Tom, I need to stop
okay.
you again. What we needed was this plan that's on the right, which is the pre-existing conditions.
Right.
And then we need a plan that shows what the impacts of the landscaping that was done without permits was.
Right.
You keep saying the Keystone paths aren't a big deal, but what's the square footage of Keystone paths that were unpermitted? And what was the impact to vegetated area of those Keystone paths? We need to go through that so that we can have an understanding of what were the impacts of the unpermitted work.
Right.
And then
So
we can better understand how to address those impacts, mitigate for them. And maybe that involves looking at a future condition that could be incorporated into your proposed work with the
okay,
garage.
so we do have those numbers in here. I will get you a plan with the interim stuff. What I was trying to do was put it all together because it was all mixed together during the site visit. And I maybe don't have some of the history to have understood that you needed that interim plan.
Ask for it in writing like
So
3 times.
So in terms of, so it's about 292 square feet of Keystone walkway that was added to the site. And we have more that we're proposing, but we won't talk about that right now. The stone landscape areas, I think that we should have a number for that in that table as well.
But you have proposed, not existing. We need
yeah,
pre-existing
so-
and existing.
Right, no.
Tom,
so
what's
we
the
need to-
plan for rectifying the issues that are, I mean, talking about coming to rectifying these issues by coming up with a whole new plan is not really what.
Well, so what I'd like to do is go through the after the fact items and we can get you another plan with square footage, and based on our discussion, change what we're proposing on some of these things. So
Can I just interrupt for a second? Because I certainly understand the frustration of the board, and I hear where Tom's trying to go. Some of this interim work, right, reasonably. So let's say the applicant goes out to remove the bluestone facing on the wall with whatever's holding it there and repairs it, right? He's going to be in that planting bed there at the same time. So I understand, and then there's the Keystone, but part of this is that it doesn't make sense to me, and maybe I'm misunderstanding Dan's comment, Joe's comment, Julie's comment, that aside from the bluestone facing on the wall, it doesn't make sense to me that some of the stuff that wasn't permitted is removed and then would be allowed to be done and then be replaced. If I'm misunderstanding what's happening here, that doesn't make sense to me.
I don't think we're proposing that, Lisa. We haven't even gotten through the discussion to get this far yet. Do you know what I mean? I don't think anyone is saying, go out there, remove everything and bring it back to its pre-existing condition. And then let's start from scratch and talk about what's allowed. But we don't even have the landscape plan that shows what was done without permits.
Okay. All right. So can I make a suggestion?
Just to even have the proper discussion.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all.
So if I could, and Tom, you can interrupt me if I'm incorrect here. If you issue an order, because I hear the commission loud and clear, to remove the bluestone facing and repair that wall, however it is that you want to say that, right? And in the meantime, right, and you put a date on it that's reasonable given the time of year, and you put a date on it, and then in the next meeting, if it's January, Tom comes in and has, let's call it a plan in the middle, right? In here, like on this sheet or in another sheet, so we have the plan on the right, which was original. Then we have the offending plan, and then we have the proposed plan. Is that what the commission is looking for?
Well, I think one thing we were looking for, he spent a lot of money on a landscape plan, and he doesn't seem to have have it anywhere. Someone must have done drawings for him on what was going to be done back there before he gave them money.
So I
So,
don't know, Joe, that's, I don't want to presuppose that, because I think that, again, I wasn't involved at the time, that my understanding from walking around was that they just kind of did it on their own. So I don't know that they hired people to do it. Maybe he did, I don't know. But Tom, you don't have that a
no,
plan.
no, I asked
that,
for
right?
too much
No.
information on what went in, and what I got was from a nursery, some printouts.
Yeah,
on
I
4
don't
different
think there
species
was
of-
It shouldn't be that hard because you essentially have it all already on
Well,
this.
it's all, yeah,
proposed-
so, I mean.
But you
what
have
we-
to give us the calculations. You need to say, well, and this many stones were put down, and
Right.
this is the area that was turned from vegetated to pea stone pathway. And this
Well,
is the
right.
amount of area that was changed from vegetated to driveway, and et cetera, et cetera. And the fence that went, and we need an assessment of all of the violations, all of the things that were done without a permit. And then we can say, which of those things can stay and which of those things would we not have permitted, or better yet, which of those things had an impact that needs to be mitigated for. And
Right.
then we have a pile of things that we know that we need mitigation for. And then we can start looking at another proposed plan to deal with all of that. And maybe it looks like what you've got proposed, and maybe it looks a little different, but we are jumping way ahead by looking at this proposed plan.
Yeah, so one of the things I do want to point out,
I'd like to
So-
ask
so this
also,
is-
I'd like to ask, did the homeowner do the work or not?
I will try to find out who did the work.
But,
I mean, that's a very easy question to answer.
Oh, no,
did
it
he-
absolutely is. It's one I didn't ask. I
What-
asked details on what was done in terms of species,
Right.
and we surveyed the limit, which is shown here. This is the limit, and you can see, so if you can try to ignore the gray and the brown here, all of what was done on the ground, all the after the fact stuff is all surveyed. We have it all. What we did is, as apparently we sort of jumped ahead. What I was trying to do was, compare it as if we were permitting for the initial position, rather than, everything, rather than just looking at the after the fact. And so, that's my error in lumping it all together, but it's all in here, and this is stuff that can all be calculated. So this line here is the limit of those landscape beds. This is the limit of the bluestone facing. These are those boulders that are shown here. And what we can do, it's pretty loud and clear. The veneer's got to go, the boulders have to go. We can update, and do a middle plan and kind of say, okay, here's all the stuff in the middle, and here's what's going. What I was hoping we could do is walk through, and I can show you these areas. I know I don't have all the right quantification, because what we did is we kind of jumped from 0 to 60, and we didn't stop in the middle with the, with that middle step, but just find out, okay, what here is clearly not up for negotiation. So clearly it sounds like the bluestone isn't, the stones aren't. Let's go through at least what's absolutely not up for negotiation, and we'll take steps in the interim to get that stuff removed. And then to come back with a plan with all the quantification and try to justify, what we keep and what the mitigation is. What we did is try to justify, okay, here's what was done. And I know it's the wrong approach, but then we did come up with some mitigation, which was removal of all of the concrete, including the old concrete foundation for the garage, and the concrete that's under the pea stone. For those of you who were there on the site visit, we kicked aside the pea stone, and this concrete that extends all the way over to the building. Can we just go over what are the clear, absolute has to go? The bluestone facing and the stones. Is there other things that is just not even up for discussion in the commission's view?
So I don't know what's exactly, I don't think when we did the site visit, we didn't walk down the area to the right edge of the property where it's got, down near the
Down this
house.
way. Yeah,
Down below where the stone / landscaping.
Oh, here?
You see- Nope, to the right,
Okay,
down.
down.
That strip right below the hand to the right,
Yep,
it says stones and landscaping, right there.
Right?
That's all landscaping he did at the same time he did the other stuff.
right. This is the same kind of stones as is up here. So this is,
Right, so we need something showing all that
yep,
and the other landscaping up to the left.
Yeah,
What is in it, what was done, because none of that was permitted either.
right.
We need to know what's in there.
Right, so I've given you a list in an email that went in today, a list of the species. So I can tell you what's in those. So it's a river stone bed, and the species that are in there, there is Rosa rugosa, there's hydrangea, and I don't have a Latin name for the hydrangea. All I have from the landscape information I've got is the word hydrangea. It does not look like oak leaf hydrangea, which is the native hydrangea, so I don't believe it's a native. There is something called maiden grass, which I've given you the Latin name because I have it. And then something called Nepeta Persian, which is the one that looks sort of like an herb. And those are written up as being extremely good pollinator plants. But those are the 4 species that are out there in those beds throughout. None of them are native. You guys do on occasion allow the rugosa rose. The other ones, as I indicated in my email, I do think that their growth habit and the fact that they're not invasive does to me appear to be something that provides dune function. And it does appear to me to be something that replacing a lawn area with something, the river stone is a compatible material in that it will move with floodwaters, etc. And the plants are 3-dimensional and will trap sand and sediment, etc. So I think that they are the kind of thing that we might be able to negotiate with the commission during permitting in an area that's lawn being converted over, but I don't think it's something you would accept as a mitigation proposal.
Okay, yeah, I'm personally less concerned about the plants if they're not, if they're definitely not invasive, but what I would like to see is a landscaping plan of what's there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can give you a landscaping plan if one doesn't exist, but what we can do is take the data from Everett survey and create that middle pane to make it clear and get rid of all the proposed stuff.
I just want to know what's in there.
Yep.
What's where, and I don't know if there's any big rocks in that that area there.
No, there's all the surveyor actually, after we got the initial ground survey, we sent the crew back to make sure they got all of the big stone that was out there. So I believe we've got it. We will confirm that before the next meeting. And given that the veneer and those stones are something that you say has got to go, we can, convey that to the client. And if the commission feels they want to issue an order to that effect, then that's, you're right. It's not a permanent thing and it's not something that normally would be provided. My only point in my effort to say that there's a reason to keep it is that these block walls are, as you guys know from Reservation Terrace, they don't really work the way people think they do when they put them in because of the sheer face. And it is something to roughen up the face does have a benefit. But
not in this case, that doesn't apply quite the same way. This was a aesthetic facade on the landward side of the wall. So
right. But I think
let's not get involved in the argument that it's
no. So I'm
coastal
just
engineering.
explaining, right. But I've heard the commission loud and clear. So that's, so we will take those steps to deal with that. With regard to the concrete at grade that we are proposing as mitigation for the proposed work, the reason I want to just mention that now is if we're going to have equipment out there that's going to have to be breaking up the concrete on the wall, it would be beneficial environmentally to get rid of the concrete now. And it would also make sense from a contractual point of view, you know, with somebody doing the work. It would also make sense to get it done before we get any kind of significant snowstorm. So one thing I would ask is if the commission, as part of removal of the things that we know you won't accept, will also let us kind of move forward on removal of the concrete that I don't think anybody would argue that you wouldn't normally approve.
Are you then going to propose, are you going to put pea stone in its place right away and
We're,
implement the plan?
no, I mean, we would remove it and bring it to grade with clean sand, which we would do anyway. And then we just wouldn't plant it or surface it until you guys approve a plan afterwards. But it would at least, you know, having getting a contractor lined up to come out and do the work is going to be tough enough. But giving them more work is just a little more enticing to get somebody out there.
I have no issues with getting rid of that other concrete. But
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine with me.
Right. The other element is the tree removal, and I'll understand if the commission doesn't want to let that happen, but getting that done before winter would also be, you know, you've seen how that's kind of leaning a little bit towards the neighbor. And my concern with that tree is deciduous trees in an environment like this where the grade is fairly low are not going to have tap roots that go very deep. So the things kind of, you know,
when we were out there, I looked at the tree too, and it's leaning at the house and the deck. And it was a split tree anyways, so it does not look to be in great shape, but probably should get an arborist to approve of that before it gets removed.
okay, but if we could get an arborist to agree that it's a hazard to the neighbor's house and, you know, and initiate removal before the January meeting, would that in concert with removing these other things? Is that?
I don't have an issue with the tree.
Okay, all right.
If it
So
was in better shape and not leaning, then yes.
That it complies with our regulations, Tom, that if a tree is sick, dying, or hazard to public safety.
no, but I just want
property,
to,
then-
right. I want to be careful that anything that we do between now and January that's on the ground is something that the commission agrees with.
So
And then
we'll
moves us
just need a
forward.
letter from an arborist with the photos to
Okay.
attach.
So the other after the fact items, I've given you the square footage on. The entry porch changes. There's a net reduction. One of the entry porches, the one, the landing up here is was approved at 18 and built at 26, and this landing was approved at 72.5 and built at 50. So they are different than what was permitted, but I think that it's within the realm of if somebody came into you with a minor change with a net reduction in landing, that you probably would have entertained it. So just want to make sure that, you know, so that's one of the things. And then I've also given you the documentation on substantial improvement. Again, I know you just gotten that today. We've gotten a letter from the appraiser saying that the changes in what was done on the structure don't end up changing his overall conclusion. So again, I understand you're going to want to read through that and, you know, if you have further questions later, but we have provided you with that information. So I guess next steps, I think what it would make sense to do for us to do is move forward on kind of a two-pronged approach. One is on the ground, getting some of the most sort of obnoxious to the commission issues resolved. And that appears to be the veneer and the stone. While we're doing that, get rid of the concrete that's going to be removed. And if we can get an arborist to sign off on the tree, remove the tree. While we're doing that work on the ground, we would have Everett separate out the after the fact elements and produce an after the fact plan, quantify things. We will note the items that have been removed at that point prior to the meeting, assuming that they're removed by then. And quantify the things that remain. And then we'll make our requests separated in terms of asking for approval to keep after the fact elements and then asking the commission for the change to the permitted elements. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I would just ask if we're going to remove the concrete now, that the commission consider that as mitigation or potential mitigation for the proposed stuff that gets approved later. Just in consideration with the garage or accessory structure.
Depends on what you restore it with.
Right. No, absolutely.
Not concrete.
No.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, keep in mind that the pre-existing condition on this site was entirely lawn where it wasn't concrete. With some gravel, sort of gravel sand mix for the drive. So there wasn't a lot of deep rooted vegetation and there wasn't anything with any height to trap sand. The other mitigation element that's in our proposal as part of all this, which is not shown on the plan, is that we're willing to put about 200 linear feet of snow fence out at a location to be kind of determined with the commission in the field where it makes the most sense. We looked at all that during the site visit, and there's snow fence that is out there on this lot that is doing a heck of a job collecting sand. And I think folks agree that it would be good to get some more snow fence out there. So again, we'd be willing to include that in a mitigation package to do some work with that. And,
Tom, can I add one more thing in addition to that? Would be the fence, which I think you all can start working on that right away, because we know the fence is not compliant. And if any fence stays there at all, it can't be that fence.
Okay.
So can I just, I want to revisit something to be clear, because Julia, you kind of threw in a comment. Clearly the concrete that's proposed to be removed around the side of the house was existing far before the current owner purchased the property. If it's removed, then I would like the commission to consider that removal mitigation. If you're not going to consider it mitigation, then why would they go to the expense to remove it?
Yeah, Lisa, I didn't mean to imply that it wasn't going to be a benefit or could be considered mitigation, but it does depend. I mean, the extent of the mitigation that you could count for it would depend on what goes in its place. Certainly a patio is a little bit less valuable than American beach grass or a planting area. So
yeah,
that's all
I understand that. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that comment, because it didn't make sense to me. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Right.
There's degrees of mitigation. Yeah.
Well, certainly. I do think, though, if you look at concrete to pea stone, that's a huge leap just in terms of the ability for the dune to function during a storm, whereas a concrete would just reflect energy. So so we can talk about all of that and the proposed stuff at the next meeting. But as Lisa said, it is important that gets acknowledged as mitigation, and we understand what we put down does impact that, the extent to which you count that.
Yeah,
obviously
we would normally consider that concrete removal to be mitigation.
Yeah.
So that's a non-issue, at least for me.
Right. Yeah,
So
okay. It's just, again, to entice a contractor, if we're able to do all of that at the same time, that makes life a lot easier, I think.
Right. So the requirement, it's just to be clear, so nobody's lost on any of this. Immediately, right? It obviously got to get a contractor. The bluestone facing and whatever it is that's attaching it to the wall. Those larger, you guys keep calling them stones. I think they're kind of boulders or whatever those are that are marked on this plan. And making the fence compliant that runs along the eastern side of the property. At the same time, however, we have permission to remove the concrete that's to the west of the house. And assuming that we have a letter from arborist to remove the tree,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, with the removal of that bluestone, all of those blocks, you can see it clearly. Well, when you're there, you can see it clearly, but all of those blocks have essentially pointing, concrete covering all the gaps. That stuff's got to go too. All that additional stuff, I'm looking at the aerial photograph right now, and you can see that concrete was the gaps between the blocks have concrete added to them too. That's all got to go. Because that's changing the function of the blocks too, whether substantially or not. Yeah, it looks better, but that's got to go too.
So just when we were out there, and maybe it, where the bluestone is facing on the concrete blocks that are on city property, it appeared to me that the neighbor also had bluestone on his blocks, bluestone facing, and I could be wrong about that.
That's not, those are not his blocks. Those are city blocks.
Right. Well, I
Okay.
think actually what is deceiving is I think as the wall goes over this way, it remains on his property for quite a ways, and the neighbor is actually coming over his property to go down these temporary stairs.
No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't. Right at that corner, just north of the stepstones, a line goes right across, which is city property.
Right. Okay. But
And-
I'm saying that this area here, when you're on site, appears to be off property.
It does appear, well, yes, it does, because it's not the neighbor's property either. It's the
Right.
city.
Okay.
Right. No, that's understood. So wherever the veneer was applied, it needs to come off, whether it's on his property or off.
Correct.
Okay.
And honestly, I think we need an enforcement order to codify this. Because I really don't want to wait with it. We've waited a long time for a lot of projects or enforcements to finish, and I think we need an enforcement order with a date certain and some decent fines if it's not done. And he's going to need to find a contractor. It's not our issue whether he can find a contractor or not. He did all this unpermitted, so.
So here's what I would request, Mr. Chair, just to make it clear, in whatever it is that you're going to do. It is difficult right now to find people to work, as you know. So do whatever time period you're going to do, but add that if with, evidence that good faith efforts have been made or whatever, and it's not complete by the time that you've said, he has a right to come in advance to request an extension, right? With whatever you need to do. But I think given the current conditions everybody is living under, that I would request that something like that be done, but then the commission would know about it.
But there's going to need to be some sort of progress on.
Yeah, right. That's why I added the language that he would have to show what progress had occurred. You couldn't just come in 2 months or 3 months and say, I need an extension and have zero, right? I get that.
Mhm.
I get that.
So how about if you put a default deadline in the order or whatever you issue, And that you also put that you would like a schedule for completion of these items submitted, a schedule that will be acceptable to the commission for doing the work and removal to be submitted prior to your January meeting. And in the interim, the default deadline is such and such a date for getting the work done. And that gives us time to find out availability of contractors, start the work if we can. And if for any reason we need to, try to negotiate a different timetable with you, we can come back in January with that and have you guys approve it.
Which is fine. We can change any enforcement order that we want.
Right.
I'm not
Okay.
not looking to be completely unreasonable about this, and I understand the employment issue right now, but
Right.
this-
No, and
this-
Mr. Drago's been anxious to try to resolve this, and throughout the process of Everett and I and the whole team trying to work on getting what's in front of you now, which even though it woefully disappointed by not having that interim plan, is a tremendous amount of work to try to get this done.
Can you just rewind quickly and say, what
Yeah.
did you say would be submitted prior to the January meeting?
Schedule.
Alternate or a construction schedule or a schedule for completion of the tasks
Okay.
that you've put, and something to be acceptable to the commission. And you could put, absent this, the default deadline for removal is
Whatever.
X.
Okay.
Don't we have an existing enforcement order?
I don't think so.
No, we
It's a
don't.
Notice of violation.
No, it was a notice of violation.
Oh, okay.
So frankly, I was thinking of a deadline of February 1st.
Tight.
Yep, it is.
You have that as your default and you allow us to come in with a schedule, then, then that's just more incentive for us to come in with a schedule that we can do.
Mhm.
But I agree with Lisa, February 1st is tight because you got to remember that between now and the holiday, it's going to be very difficult to get anybody engaged. So it's probably first week in January, and then you got to get in their schedule and weather and all that kind of stuff. So
Also, but what you said before, Tom, is that they would be able to provide a schedule for completion of the work by the January meeting.
Right,
Which
right.
doesn't sound like that could happen either. based on
no,
what
I
you
think
said.
it could. I mean, I think we can reach out and reach a contractor, but I'm just saying to really get on there.
I don't know that, I don't think anybody's going to be able to get in their schedule and get on, it's going to be tough to get them on site.
But we
Okay.
probably would know roughly what a start date is. And,
Yep.
and then sometimes these guys give you a start date based on when they think they're going to finish the job they're on. And then you get a snowstorm and they can't finish the job they're on. So, there'll be things like that, but we can, by the January meeting, I'm pretty confident we can get a schedule together for you.
Okay.
I just don't
So
know that we
I
can get
will-
the work done by February 1st.
I will put together the commission is voting, is the commission in agreement on issuance of an enforcement order with these parameters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would appear so.
Need to vote.
Can you read back what you think I understand you have to,
So, right, so the
Work on it.
enforcement order would note the violations and would require the removal of the stone veneer and the large boulder, the stone veneer facing on the backside of the existing concrete wall, and the large boulders placed in the landscaped area. Schedule for completion of this work should be submitted to the commission prior to the January 4th public meeting date. Absent this schedule being submitted, the deadline for completion of the work is February 1. Allowance for removal of the existing concrete would also be provided within that work.
Yeah, I would only add that specify that the entire length of the bluestone facing, including that on city property,
Okay.
must be removed.
Okay.
I don't want him stopping it at his property line.
Does it matter if one of the neighbors put on some of the stone, or it doesn't matter? We just,
It's
Okay,
all the
yeah.
same stone. And we don't know whether the neighbor did it or not. We do know it's the same stone facing that's on his property.
If we have difficulty getting permission on any off-site property, we'll certainly inform the commission.
What I'm looking at right here is there shouldn't be any issue because it's not the neighbor's property.
Well,
You can go right from,
This area here is off property. And then up in this area off into the city. So the
right,
ci- the
that's
city
city
element.
property.
So, if this owner here says he can't do it, then we'll be in touch.
You'll let us know.
Okay,
Okay, so,
Alright.
so we'll work on the sort of paperwork end of things, and Julia, maybe I'll run a draft by you, because I want to make sure what we come in with in January is going to be
That'd be
acceptable.
great. And it would be great to get it 2 weeks prior to the
Yeah.
January meeting.
That's,
but we still need to vote on the enforcement order and what we want for a timetable on that. And what we want if nothing's done, what level of fines we want also. I'm personally of the opinion that, if this doesn't go satisfactorily, that we retroactively, fine to today. And I'm pretty sure we can do that. We've done that before, have we not? If nothing's done, today's the enforcement order.
Yep.
And if nothing's done, then the fines go retroactively back to this date.
I don't know how you, Mr. Chair, I don't know how you can do that if they have a date by which they're supposed to have something done. And then you go backwards to a date before they were supposed to have something done.
Well, it's a violation now.
Right.
It should not have been done.
Right.
We could have essentially been finding him now.
Yep, no, I understand.
That's part of the incentive process.
Yep.
So. And frankly, I think it should be $300 a day. I don't think we should start anything less than that.
That's per violation. How many violations?
Well, I was just gonna do $300 a day. We could, every stone could be, I don't even know how we would do the block, the facing, but I'm fine with 300 a day. If the commission's not fine with that, then you can say what you want. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think 300 is a bit much, but especially,
Well, hopefully this won't.
It'll
Need
be
to be
nothing if it's
implemented.
done. But
Okay, so where are we now? We're going to vote to, we've sort of said what the motion is a couple times. Should we, you want to repeat it again, or can we just vote on what was said?
well, we need a date. If we got to decide what date it needs to be done by, whether it's February 1st or it's March 1st or whatever. And we're going to get an update later when we can always change whatever we say, whatever we put in the enforcement order, we can change it.
I think the important thing for me is that we get a schedule at the January meeting.
Yep.
And whether we say it needs to be done by February 1st or March 1st, I think there's going to be difficulty getting it done by February 1st.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to happen, no matter how hard people work at it.
And that's fine. That's fine by me.
So I would like to see, if we don't get a schedule at the January 4th meeting, then that's when we could start fining.
Yeah, I'm with Steve, because I don't think accomplishing this that quickly really makes a difference. He's not gonna, I mean, the seasons has changed now, and it's gonna be very difficult. And obviously, we're not gonna go ahead with any of the things he wants to do here until this is resolved, so. I think more, maybe take it into March would probably make more sense, or at least get the schedule resolved at the next meeting.
Do you or don't you want to do an enforcement order?
Yeah, I think we can do an enforcement order, and the major requirement is to get a schedule, a reasonable schedule that would be able to be met. We can put in an arbitrary deadline, and if they can't meet it, assuming that progress has been made, extend it. But I think the important thing is get a schedule.
Right, but we're getting a schedule from contractors who may or may not show up for that schedule. So that's,
About to say, a schedule is not worth any more than the paper it's written on, unless I mean, the important thing is getting the work done.
Right.
And it needs to be incentivized.
Right, that's why I'm saying, get a schedule for the January 4th meeting. If we don't get one, then we start fining then. If you want to make it retroactive, I mean, fine, but.
Well, and what if we say that the schedule has to be signed by the licensed contractor and can't just be presented by the applicant as their schedule? It has to actually come from a contractor who's agreeing to do the work. That way, it's just more likely to take place within that actual schedule.
A signed contract with the contractor to do it. That makes sense to me.
Whether it's March, February, or January, February, or March, at least you know that there's a contractor who's on board to do it and we have an actual schedule.
Okay, that's good with me. So I go back to, do we want to enforcement order or just wait for the first meeting in January? I hear a lot of silence.
Well, it makes
Yeah, well,
sense. It makes sense to have an order and just make, but to tie it to getting that if certain things will happen if we don't have a schedule by January and don't have a commitment from a contractor. I don't know if you can get a commitment from a contractor even if they're not going to be able to do the work, for a while down the road. You could still have the commitment.
So we do want an enforcement, we do want the schedule to be presented, we do want to see that there's a contract. And we want this all resolved by the, or at least laid out by the January meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
Can we vote on that?
sure, make a motion.
I just so moved.
Mhm.
Second,
Second.
So
Say second.
I'd like to amend the motion to, I think it makes sense to initiate levying fines as of the January 4th meeting. That gives them time so they're not panicked about fines for, the retroactive. But Joe, are you okay with that?
yeah. Okay, so is the motion maker okay with
Yeah.
that?
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. Well, why don't we get that seconded?
second,
Okay, roll call. Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, so we will look forward to your signed contract on the 4th.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, just to confirm, if we are able to get somebody who can start before that meeting doing the work, we can coordinate that with Julia under that enforcement order?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure that's clear because there's a chance, and I know he's anxious to get stuff moving on the ground. So, you know, I think you'll find he's very willing to do this. He's, as I indicated, he was calling nonstop nights and weekends, trying to get us to get this information into you over the last couple months. So it's not been on him, the delay. It's been on us professionals trying to get it all together. So anyhow, thank you very much. I think this ends a long night.
For us. All right. Thank
right.
you.
Take care. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Night.
We don't need a motion to
Thanks.
adjourn.
We do.
Move that
I
we-
just, one thing,
We'll table that motion.
and this is for Gretchen. I noticed on your email for the meeting notes that you still had Ron DeCola on the to list.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he's complained about it, but you might want to remove him. Maybe he wants to know what we're doing.
All right.
Okay. I'll send an email to Gretchen.
Okay. Well, Gretchen's, come on.
Oh, there
you
she
are.
is.
Got the message.
All right.
I'm
Okay.
surprised that you would think that the minutes aren't so interesting that everybody would want to receive them.
Well,
They
you
are.
can
They're
get
very
them
good.
off- You can get them off the public website too.
Thanks, Gretchen.
All right. I will entertain your motion now, Cal.
I make a motion that we adjourn. I move
I
that we
second.
adjourn.
I second. All in, no, well, roll call. Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Hey,
I guess,
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night, all.
I think we've earned our pass till January.
Yeah, Happy New Year. We
Yeah.
don't see you. There's no
Everything else.
city, no city holiday party this year. Just got canceled.
no, well,
Wow.
What
Now
are
you're
you
all
gonna-
itching to go to that. Okay.
all right,
Right.
folks,
Good night.
Night.
Here, happy
Night.
holidays.
Everybody.
do.